Chapter 159 Conference of Elders. Yi Shiwen didn't know where they were heading, was just following Lin Zhantian to the depths of Yiyuan School to meet the founder of Qingfeng Mountain Veins. Within a deep space of Tianfeng of Yiyuan School, the space was very small and was only able to accommodate a large palace. And inside the palace, there was an office where high-level officials of Yiyuan School would gather to have discussions on various important matters. In a giant conference room, a circular round table was placed in the middle. There were many elders seated around the round table. At the midpoint of the round table, a white-robed middle-aged man was sitting. One would be surprised to see that this man's facial features looked very ordinary and very amiable, but all of the elders present there knew that they must never dare to underestimate him. Because he was the head of Yiyuan School, Wu Patian, the supreme leader of Yiyuan School, who held the fate of people of Yiyuan School in his grasp. Wu Patian glanced at everyone present there. Among the elders, there were the merit elder, penalty elder and many other elders had come to participate in this conference, and all of them held high positions in Yiyuan School, were extremely strong. In fact, even the weakest among them was a super master of truth 9th stage. And there were few who were already in the legendary realm like Wu Patian. Although they were not among the highest cultivation group of people in Yiyuan School, but there was no doubt that this group of people held the fate of a lot of people in Yiyuan School. As we all know, 10 days later, on the Qianji Island in the East China Sea, a meeting of the warriors of several major forces is going to take place, including our Yiyuan School. Wu Patian glanced at the crowd and lightly said, "Yes, we have received their invitation, and also received the news that the imperial family is also rushing there." A penalty elder said, "Well, this time the imperial family thinks that other people do not know the secret. In fact, how can we not know? They just want to use this devil invasion as an opportunity to form an allied force. Then the four sects will have joined forces under the leadership of royal family, and that would complete the real reunification." The merit elder said with a disdained look on his face, "This is something that even the founding emperor failed to achieve, and now this young emperor actually wants to do so. What a joke. Although we are not afraid of the royal family, but we really don't have an alternative. This emperor is considered as an outstanding personality of this generation and relies on the strength of dragon qi. Although he is less than 100 years old, but he already possesses unfathomable skill, and I am afraid his strength is actually comparable to the legendary masters. No wonder he is ambitious enough to plan and make something work that even the late emperor couldn't achieve." Wu Patian continued to explain. "The intentions of other three forces are still unknown. So this time, being the team leader, you must be careful, Wang Meishing." There was a man sitting nearby Wu Patian, and one would be surprised to find that he had an appearance of a 20-year-old boy, looked very charming, and even had somewhat seductive demeanor, but he was a man. At this time, there was a malignant look on his face. Wang Meishing looked charming and pretty, but he was actually a very vicious person. It was hard to guess how many devil masters he had personally killed, and his cultivation had already reached the legendary realm. No wonder he was worthy of being the deputy head of Yiyuan School. If they dare to stretch their dog paws randomly, I would love to dare and chop them off. Wang Meishing said in a murderous and imposing tone, but still looked extremely charming, though he was the owner of a manly voice. "This time, we are getting a very good opportunity to display the formidable strength of our Yiyuan School," Wu Patian lightly said. "Especially among inner disciples, there is a particularly good seed." "Yes, Yi Shiwen, I know, but this Yi Shiwen can also stir up trouble. Not much time has passed since he joined the main sect, but he has already offended so many people, and he has also killed a lot of elite disciples, including many of the elite core disciples." At this time, a middle-aged man dressed in brown robes said, "This person is not just an evildoer, but is also a scourge. It is best to eradicate him as early as possible." The brown-robed man continued to speak. "I also know that in such a short time, the cultivation of this kid has advanced by leaps and bounds. I suspect that he is actually a devil spy who has come to subvert our Yiyuan School." "Tian Wushuang, what you are saying is wrong." At this time, a purple-robed old man sitting next to the brown-robed man said, "According to what you say, from now onwards, our Yiyuan School cannot have peerless geniuses in the future, because as long as the genius is an evildoer, we will consider that he has been under the control of devils and eradicate him. Then how will our Yuan school develop like this? Isn't our Yuan school pursuing peerless talents such as Yi Shiwen? Natural, high and absolute talent. Maybe in the future, he will reach the level of the 4 invincible disciples. The purple-robed old man continued. I have not seen such an outstanding talent ever in my life, and you want to eradicate such a disciple. Tian Wushuang, I know you are very close to the Luo clan, but you are willing to give up on such a talent for the personal gain of Luo clan. You do not deserve to work as an elder of our sect. The purple-robed man bluntly said without reservation. He was the penalty elder of Yuan school, and was in charge of the penalty palace. He was an upright man and never stooped to flattery, and nothing was hidden from his eyes, neither was he the type of person who would ignore these matters. What did you say? How dare you insult me, you stubborn donkey? Tian Wushuang suddenly got up from his seat, and said in an angry voice. So what if I did? Luo clan is radically a nest of snakes. It has been tyrannical and domineering all these years, but that was not enough for them. Now they want to hurt Yi Shiwen. Do not think that I don't know. It was the Luo clan that stirred up trouble first. It deserves to be punished. It is simply like a cancer, deeply rooted in our Yuan school, and must be cut off once and forever. The penalty elder said in a cold voice. You old thing, I am not the one who is confused, but it's actually you who is not aware of things. He has continued to secretly massacre the disciples of our sect. And you don't even know about all this. Tian Wushuang said with killing intent flashing in his eyes. He had stood alongside Luo clan and blatantly supported the banner of Luo clan in Yuan school for so many years and held deep relationship with them. How could he take it lightly when Luo clan was being accused in front him? Do you have evidence? The penalty elder said in a superficial manner. But disciples of Yuan school had spotted Luo Yifan intercepting Yi Shiwen. And this is conclusive evidence. Such a guy must be punished, otherwise, where is the dignity of the laws of our Yuan school? You old thing, you think that I do not know, you just want to hinder the influence of Chu Jinkai. You know that Luo clan gives full support to him. And now you are using this matter as an excuse to disrupt the influence of Chu Jinkai, because you are a supporter of Huang Luochen. Tian Wushuang pointed his finger at the penalty elder, and said in an unrestrained manner. Other elders did not say anything, because the matter involved 2 of the 4 strongest true disciples. These so-called 4 strongest true disciples were referred to as Chu Jinkai, Huang Luochen, Shui Yanluo and Qi Fifan. Although all of the true disciples were basically eligible to compete for the position of the head, but there were so many people competing for just one position, so it was obvious that not just anyone could become a head, so only a small portion of true disciples, who really possessed the ability, strength and influence, were able to compete for the position of the head. And in this generation of disciples, there were the so-called 4 strongest true disciples. All of them were extremely strong and had already entered half-step into the legendary realm. So basically, they were only one small step away from stepping into the legendary realm and become invincible masters. Even among the younger generation of disciples throughout the Great Yu State, they were considered among the top. These 4 individuals had always been considered as people who would most likely become the head someday, and even if not, they could easily become the leaders of strong veins. When these 4 true disciples would compete for the position of the head, many elders and even the Taishang elders, all would place their bets in favor of their own favorite candidates, and of course, they won't use spirit stones to place their bets but their entire being. The candidate with clear support would become the head and build his own faction along with these elders and Taishang elders. These elders and Taishang elders had extraordinary influence in the sect, and once they would unequivocally support someone, it would naturally be an enormous boost for him. They would not easily bet, but once they did, that would mean they had really recognized him as the head, and then they would also give full support to him. Because from the moment they bet, their destinies got linked together with the one they bet on. Once they bet in someone's favor in order to help him win the title of head, they actually became his followers and would stay alongside him even if he ended up losing. But if he won, they would also get extraordinary benefits. This Tian Wushuang was actually one of the supporters of Chu Jinkai, and at this time he was not scared to disclose it in front of everyone and directly shouted. Because the entire Luo clan, including Luo Yifan, was actually the supporter of Chu Jinkai, And their motive was understandable since none of their own members could compete for the position of head. Although the ability and wisdom of Luo Yifan were quite good, but his strength was still far behind that of the 4 strongest true disciples, not to say he lacked talent as well as strength when compared to them. The strength of these 4 disciples was almost comparable to that of the Taishang elders. Luo clan was aware of this, so it decided to give full support to Chu Jinkai. All of these 4 true disciples were not ordinary people. Following them naturally meant getting a lot of benefits. Luo clan was getting a lot of advantage by supporting Chu Jinkai. During the incident of Hua Menghan, Head was extremely angry that Luo clan had actually dared to attack his closing disciple. Wasn't this equivalent to provoking him, the head of entire sect? Afterward, Chu Jinkai personally went into action and finally settled this matter, although he had to pay a huge price, but Luo clan was saved thanks to him. The penalty elder was a supporter of Huang Luochen, so at this time he was accusing Luo Yifan just to chop off one of the supporting arms of Chu Jinkai. Everyone was aware of what was going on between these 2 elders, but they were unwilling to interfere, especially those who supported the other 2 disciples. They simply planned to stay on the sidelines and silently watch this scene. Chapter 160 Senior Yi. Everyone looked at Wu Patian. They did not know what he was thinking. After all, he was the head and sole ruler of Yiyuan School. He could make decisions regarding the matters of Yiyuan School. And even the Taishang elder could not directly interfere with his decisions. Yi Shiwen won't be eradicated. I believe everybody is aware of his talent that can be said as absolutely rare. Our Yiyuan School needs talented people like him. Not to mention, he has not committed any mistakes. Tian Wushuang, you go tell Luo clan that from now onwards, they are not allowed to intercept Yi Shiwen. Wu Patian said in a calm manner, but his words were like the final decree in the sect. And with this, the matter was finally over. Head, this Yi Shiwen is extremely arrogant and he even ruthlessly kills the people of his own sect, taking his peerless talent into consideration. If we allow him to grow stronger, then he would certainly bring disaster. Tian Wushuang said to validate his point. Then according to what you said, Luo clan is the biggest evil. They openly murdered one of my disciples. It is an influential clan that openly does evil deeds, and I presume everyone is aware of that. At this time, the criminal law elder suddenly said, well, the matter arrived here and everyone has shared their opinions and views. It seemed as if Wu Patian didn't want to continue the discussion over this matter, and continued to say, Yi Shiwen came out from the mysterious space present in the depths of Yiyuan School, and was flying through the void. It seemed like he was treading on a rainbow. He did not know that the matter related to him was being discussed in a special conference of elders. Although he had said that he would go the elders' council, but later, he had to go meet the founder of Qingfeng Mountain Vein. Yi Shiwen didn't know how Luo Yifan would put this matter in front of everyone. Though it was him who had violated the rules of sect and openly intercepted Yi Shiwen in front of many witnesses, but Luo Yifan had been unable to hurt him. So even if he is convicted for intercepting Yi Shiwen, he would receive small punishment. Yi Shiwen, don't expect that Yiyuan School would give you justice, I tell you, don't keep your hopes high. Yi Mo appeared on his shoulder and said, I think that Luo Yifan is an absolutely petty guy. If you do not look for him, he will look for opportunities to deal with you. You mean strike first and gain the upper hand? Yi Shiwen asked and narrowed his eyes. People who were familiar with him knew very well that when Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes, it often meant that his heart was overflowing with killing intention. Yes, this world is like that. Counting on others is pointless. You must strike first and gain the upper hand. If he can look for you in order to intercept you, why cannot you? Yi Mo said. You humans do not pay attention to the fact that proper behavior is based on reciprocity. If you don't return the favor now, when will you? But Luo Yifan is now at the gathering place of Luo clan. Attacking him there may be a bad idea. Yi Shiwen said. He cannot stay there for a lifetime. Sooner or later, we will find his trail, and then you can cut weeds and eliminate the roots. Yi Mo said and smiled. The smile really complimented his small stature, made him look sort of sly but cute. Yi Shiwen knew that Yi Mo was right. At this time, he would easily succeed in intercepting and killing Luo Yifan. Anyway, he was not going to patch up with Luo clan, and neither would they let him off. He could say for sure that right now Luo Yifan was certainly plotting against him somewhere. It could be said that Luo Yifan was really a big source of trouble, and if not resolved quickly, then perhaps it would lead to many major problems in the future. Besides killing Luo Yifan, the most urgent task is to practice and have a breakthrough into the truth realm as soon as possible. So long as you can step into the truth realm, then that Luo Yifan will certainly not be your opponent, and it won't even take few moves to behead him. Emo said, Masha territory should be a very good place to hone my skills. Unfortunately at present, I'm just an inner disciple, and I don't have the privilege to go inside. Yi Shiwen said. Originally, Yi Shiwen intended to first focus on having a breakthrough and directly stepping into the truth realm to become a true disciple. And after becoming a true disciple, he could freely access Masha territory. At that time, he could find those truth-level devils and behead them. In that case, Yi Shiwen should be able to quickly enhance his cultivation in the truth realm, and his fighting strength would become comparable with the Masters of Truth second stage, and he might even be able to behead them. In fact, he would also be able to easily fight with a Truth third stage master like Elder Jing Xian, and suppress him during the fight. At present, Yi Ziwen's fighting strength was comparable to the strength of Truth-level masters, but if he could break into the Truth realm, then there would be a tremendous enhancement in his strength. But whether it was Lin Zhantian or the founder of Qingfeng Mountain Vein, they all felt that for now, Yi Shiwen should not step into the truth realm. Moreover, the sect was also hoping that Yi Shiwen shouldn't step into the truth realm for the time being. And the reason was simple. Yi Shiwen was going to participate in the competition among 5 major forces of Great Yu State. And to put it bluntly, in this gathering of major forces, a mutual show of strength was going to take place. The true disciples of these 5 forces would be coming from all around to participate in the contest, and they would ultimately determine each other's strength. There was also an old rule that the 5 forces must show mutual restraint, and try not to create a situation that might lead to eruption of a large-scale tangled warfare. This competition was only a way to ascertain each other's strength, so each force would try to bring its strongest disciples to show off its strength in front of others. Yi Shiwen joined the main sect, and in a short time his fighting strength enhanced dramatically and reached all the way up to the truth realm, which also gave him a chance to represent Yuan School in the upcoming competition, and he was formidable enough to easily sweep away the disciples of inner and core rank like it was nothing. So in the competition, Yuan School would gain a big face in front of other forces thanks to him. At that time, the sect would give large-scale incentives and rewards to him. But if Yi Shiwen had a breakthrough and stepped into the truth realm, then he would no longer be regarded as an inner disciple. He would become a true disciple and would also have to fight with true disciples in the competition. In short, he would no longer be the outstanding existence anymore. He would only be a bottom-level true disciple. There was no doubt that it was good for him to wait for now, but for Yi Shiwen, it could have been a rapid increase of strength in a short period, because he could easily face those truth-level devils with the help of the suppression of Tianyuan Mirror. And he could also challenge several devil masters. Masha territory was definitely a good place to practice, but he couldn't go there. And most importantly, Yi Shiwen had already consumed almost all of the spirit stones from the stock in his storage ring, leaving only a meager amount of 1,000 spirit stones. And in addition to that, his cultivation had already increased to such an extent that he was going to require a massive amount of spirit stones. Now he needed top-grade spirit stones to withstand the high rate of consumption. However, the sect distributed top-grade spirit stones only to the true disciples, and that too once in a month. Moreover, the missions could also reward top-grade spirit stones, but these missions were generally top-ranked and were only meant for true disciples, because they were often very dangerous, and non-truth level disciples would simply die on these missions. So these extremely dangerous missions used to have strength requirements. Yi Shiwen was caught in a deadlock, and only after participating in this competition and coming back from there, he would be able to step into the truth realm and break free from this deadlock. However, as far as Yi Shiwen was concerned, it could be said that within this period of time, he actually had no means to rapidly increase his strength. Just like the main goal of Hotian Masters was to strengthen the body, and for Xiantian Masters, it was to transform Jin Yuan, The main goal of truth-level masters was to interact with the world Lingqi, and a truth-level master could achieve resonance with the world Lingqi by increasing their perception of the world. In other words, the truth realm focused more on accumulation of understanding of the world. For the martial arts practitioners, the body and the understanding of heavenly laws were two indispensable parts in their practice. The body carried soul, and the world of martial arts practice was like a vast sea. The soul must cross the sea, the body was like a ship, and if the ship was sturdy and tough, there would be a higher possibility of crossing the sea. The Hotian realm and Xiantian realm could only be regarded as initial preparations for beginning the journey to cross the sea. There was shipbuilding and reinforcement until the martial artist reached the truth realm. After stepping into the truth realm, the person would learn swimming, reading nautical chart, sailing a ship and many other necessary tasks that might be required during the journey. Legendary realm was the real start of the journey. Yi Shiwen had already completed the accumulation of Hotian and Xiantian realm. Afterwards, he had also gained some of the initial perception of the heavenly laws, but at this stage, the mysterious space would display a greater ability, because so long as there were enough spirit stones, he would be able to comprehend heavenly laws inside the mysterious space, and then, his fighting strength would be far more than others. He would become 10 times or even 100 times stronger than others. At this stage, Yi Shiwen had the advantage and could become far more stronger compared to others in a short time, but unfortunately at the most critical time, he did not have spirit stones. For Yi Shiwen, it was like his ship ran out of fuel, and now he could only go forward at the speed of a sailing ship. However, he didn't have an option because 1 month later, he must go to the Qianji Island, located in the East China Sea, and participate in the gathering of warriors. Thinking too much was pointless, Yi Shiwen left the depths of Yiyuan School and went straight towards the station of Qianyu faction. But he never thought that at this time, the Qianyu courtyard looked just like a busy city marketplace, and was no longer an infrequently visited place as it used to be. A crowd of many inner disciples and core disciples had gathered outside the gate of Qianyu faction station, and they were trying to squeeze inside. Even the outer disciples were simply looking at the crowd of these inner and core disciples with envious looks in their eyes. Yi Shiwen took a quick look and saw 2 senior disciples standing as gatekeepers at the gate of Qianyu faction, maintaining order, while at this time, the new disciples had dignified appearances and there were proud looks on their faces as they were looking at the crowd of inner and core disciples. What was going on? Yi Shiwen felt somewhat strange and descended down on a rainbow light. At this time, many disciples saw him and stepped aside to make way for him, while praising out loud, "Senior Yi." At this time, even the senior disciples, who had higher ranks, did not dare to pull rank in front of Yi Shiwen, and respectfully called him Senior Yi. Chapter 161. Crazy Shark 13 Pirates Senior Yi. The voices of greeting started coming continuously that caused Yi Shiwen to feel somewhat confused. He asked the 2 disciples guarding the entrance of Qianyu faction station, and found out that the news about him almost beheading Luo Yifan in a battle had suddenly spread throughout Yiyuan School. Yi Shiwen went to meet the founder of Qingfeng Mountain Vein and came back late, but after coming back, he found out that the entire Yiyuan School already knew about this news. This news had stirred the entire Yiyuan School. This was simply a miracle, like a myth, especially for those who didn't acknowledge Yi Shiwen earlier, and did not believe that he participated in the Inner Seed Disciples competition, and also won the title of chief. And that was not all. The Qianyu faction that used to be an unknown faction, and was in a constant danger of being exterminated by senior factions at any time, was no longer the same. Yi Shiwen almost beheaded Luo Yifan in Masha territory. When the news spread across Yiyuan School, it caused an enormous sensation, and everyone was discussing this matter. Many people were shocked and weren't ready to believe, but when the Inner Seed Disciples and Core Seed Disciples came back from Masha territory, they collectively stated that they witnessed the battle between Yi Shiwen and Luo Yifan with their own eyes. And it was actually Luo Yifan who was being suppressed. If an elder had not suddenly interfered, then perhaps Luo Yifan would have been beheaded by Yi Shiwen. This finally convinced everyone because one person might be wrong, but when so many people were collectively and decisively stating the same thing, and all of them were the elites of Yiyuan School, so the news couldn't possibly be false. Or maybe they were bored and had come together to play a joke on everyone, and were actually just screwing around with them. With respect to this possibility, everyone might as well believe Yi Shiwen had already defeated Luo Yifan. Not to mention they would have soon discovered, because when facing such rumors in the past, Luo clan would quickly resolve the situation and wouldn't allow the news to spread, so it seemed as if such a thing really happened. And it actually affirmed this matter. Countless people were still in shock, while there were many smart people who already came into action and had arrived in abundance at the station of Qianyu faction. Some were here to see Yi Shiwen and witness his true capacity. Some were hoping to join the Qianyu faction in order to exploit its connections and new influence, trying to get close to the original members of the faction. Of course, some of them were actually the spies of major factions, and had come to keep a constant watch on the current situation of Qianyu faction, hoping to see something. And now that Yi Shiwen was finally back, he could confirm whether this news was real or hoax. However, when they saw the elegant figure of Yi Shiwen walking on a divine rainbow, they immediately knew that their guess was correct, because only true disciples could have such magical powers. And this was the power desired by numerous disciples, the so-called flight. After seeing this, even those who had been skeptical about this news all this time had no other option but to believe in it. But they also thought that perhaps Yi Shiwen was already a master of the truth realm, and it could be confirmed from just seeing him flying freely and effortlessly. The chances of Yi Shiwen being a true disciple suddenly attracted the attention of many disciples. Ignoring all those who were trying to get close to him, Yi Shiwen strode straight into the entrance of the station of Qianyu faction, and even after finding out that the news had spread, he was very calm as if this was normal. In fact, in this world advocated by strength, strong people always obtain such treatment, not to mention, in their eyes, Yi Shiwen was already a true disciple of Yuan school, and there were only few hundred true disciples. Not to forget that Yi Shiwen was very young and was still able to step into the truth realm, which meant that his future prospects were limitless. There were a lot of people who thought that Yi Shiwen might actually be able to reach the level of the 4 invincible true disciples of Yuan school. His future growth was simply unlimited, unless it was absolutely necessary. A lot of people did not want to offend him. Earlier, it did not matter, because Yi Shiwen was an ordinary master of the Xiantian realm, although he was still considered strong by most people. But in the eyes of the stronger ones, he was just an ant in the group of ants, nothing but a quite formidable ant. But now it was not the same. After achieving the strength of the truth realm, Yi Shiwen definitely had the qualifications to be treated as their equal. Yi Shiwen went halfway, and saw a welcome message hanging over the main building of Qianyu faction. "Little brother, you really are okay." A figure suddenly leapt up and fiercely patted on the shoulders of Yi Shiwen. And Yi Shiwen immediately cracked open his mouth to give a forced smile. At this time, Yan Qiliang and the others looked at Yi Shiwen with baffled looks in their eyes. Even Yi Feng, although he wasn't so battled as others, because even if Yi Shiwen changed a lot, he was still his little brother, but this time he didn't see him like a child, rather as someone on an equal status, and greeted him from far away with a wide smile on his face. However, the one who could dare to be so slapstick with Yi Shiwen was his one and only sister, Yi Wuxia. Perhaps in her heart, regardless of how powerful he had become, she still held his impression as her little brother. "Now the entire Yuan school is talking about you and how you fought with that Luo Yifan and almost defeated him," Yi Wuxia said in a very excited manner. Yi Shiwen was such a hotshot, and she was truly proud of it. When people confirmed that the rumor was true, after saying few words to Yi Shiwen, they stayed for a while then started to leave, and soon, only Yi Shiwen and Yi Feng, the 2 brothers, remained in the room. "You are in the limelight, but you have also become a target of public criticism, and I am afraid that soon, Yuan school will start keeping an eye on you," Yi Feng said in a somewhat worried voice. He was not a cheerful person like Yi Wuxia, who had a blind faith on the strength of Yi Shiwen. Yi Feng was the eldest among them. He just couldn't help but worry about his younger siblings. He certainly wanted to do things to help them and always be there for them. Keeping an eye is fine. What else can they do anyway? Yi Shiwen sneered. If they intend to use their evil plans behind the scenes, then I am not a weakling either. What do you plan to do about this Luo case? I don't think that they plan to let go. Yi Shiwen was already aware of this, but even Yi Feng was able to make a correct guess. One could see that everyone was aware of the domineering arrogance of Luo clan. "Rest assured, I am not afraid of Luo clan," Yi Shiwen said. "I was more afraid that they will come for you. That issue is bigger." After all, Yi Shiwen now possessed the strength comparable to the true disciples of the first stage of Truth Realm. And it could be said that now he had the power to protect himself, but Yi Feng was very weak compared to him. And Yi Shiwen could not allow him to go against the Luo clan. "Rest assured, we will not have any problem. We are not weaklings, and our ancestor would be protecting us, so we don't need to worry," Yi Feng said with a smile. He was talking about Lin Zhantian. As long as an elder like him was around to protect them, there really was no need to worry about anything. After all, behind Lin Zhantian, there was a hidden huge influence of the Qingfeng mountain vein. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen was not worried anymore. After chatting with Yi Feng for a while, Yi Shiwen also returned to his room and began the closed-door training. It could be said that he learned a lot of things in Masha territory, and needed time to slowly comprehend and sense them. Although he lacked spirit stones, making his sensibility much slower, but he was still faster than a lot of people. A day passed in a blink of an eye, and the sensibility of Yi Shiwen precipitated by a significant amount. However, Yi Shiwen did not continue the closed-door training, because he obtained the news that Luo Yifan finally came out, and was no longer hiding in the residence of Luo clan. The news was that he picked up a mission, and went to the East China Sea to destroy the nest of Crazy Shark 13 pirates. This group, called Crazy Shark 13 Pirates, was quite infamous among the several pirate groups active in the East China Sea, because they were very strong. The reputation of Crazy Shark 13 Pirates was bad, and they were so infamous because their group composed of 13 brothers, all with different surnames. Their boss was actually a truth-level master, while the other 12 were at the Xiantian 9th peak. They were very strong, and an ordinary expert wouldn't survive in front of their combined strength. They were hard to deal with and had been stirring up trouble in the East China Sea. Many people had long wanted to exterminate them, but they weren't strong enough for the job. These pirates were rampaging for so many years, and finally, someone sent a request to Yuan School for the extermination of these pirates. And Luo Yifan was intending to pick up this task. He wanted to stay away from the sect and lie low, because after his fight with Yi Shiwen, he was facing quite a lot of accusations, many of which were from the elders, so he had to immediately come out from hiding, and he decided to take the mission to exterminate Crazy Shark 13 pirates. This news was quite secretive, but still reached Yi Shiwen. If it was before, not even a bit of this news would have fallen into the hands of Yi Shiwen. But after achieving a large-scale promotion in strength, in the eyes of many people, Yi Shiwen had become a character of great importance, and a lot of people were happy to tell this news to him in exchange for his goodwill. And among them, there were many enemies of Luo clan as well, who wanted Yi Shiwen to get rid of an influential Luo clan's member like Luo Yifan. But Yi Shiwen did not mind. After all, the key point was to get rid of Luo Yifan. It could be considered as getting rid of a latent danger, although Luo clan was a very big threat, but as far as Yi Shiwen was concerned, he planned to break them bit by bit. After getting the news, Yi Shiwen quietly tidied up to prepare for the journey, although he wanted to kill Luo Yifan, but he also did not want to get caught while launching a full-scale attack on him. Luo Yifan was an arrogant man, but when he started facing the accusations from those elders, he had to go out and lie low, but they might be keeping an eye on him. While doing this kind of thing, he needed to be careful. Moreover, Qianji Island was located in the East China Sea, so Yi Shiwen went to the Merit Palace to take the map for it, and after that he did not wait any longer and flew towards the East China Sea. Chapter 162, Deepwater Black Serpent. The Great East China Sea was simply endless. It was difficult to see the end, and on the high altitude, Yi Shiwen was treading the rainbow light and was turning the map in his hands, while using Zhenyuan protection cover to not get disheveled by the strong winds. This Great East China Sea was boundless, and only a distance of about 10,000 li came under the known scope of Great Yu State. Although the influence of Great Yu State was extended in a range of a few thousand li, but Yi Shiwen obtained quite a complete nautical chart from Yuan School that had mapped about 1 million square kilometers of area near the seacoast. It could be said that the scope of the East China Sea known to Great Yu State was in fact nothing but the tip of an iceberg. The vastness of Great East China Sea could be imagined. And Yi Shiwen spent hundreds of sprit stones for this nautical chart. However, it also showed the position of the stronghold of Crazy Shark 13 pirates, which was perhaps a hard-to-find secret for an average person, but for a monster like Yi Yuan School, it was easily worth nothing. After all, for average people, masters of the truth realm were indeed like human gods, simply unattainable, but for Yi Yuan School, they were just like the Tolstoy deal with trouble. Therefore, it actually saved him a lot of effort, and he did not specifically have to look for the whereabouts of Luo Yifan. He just directly went in the direction of the stronghold of Crazy Shark 13 pirates. The salty sea breeze brushed again Yi Zaiwen's face. He narrowed his eyes, then immediately covered his whole body with Zhen Yuan, so that even at such a fast speed, the blowing sea breeze seemed comfortable to his body. This East China Sea is really too big, Yi Shiwen said with emotion. This is nothing. Yi Mo disdainfully curled his lip and said, the greatest is the sea of stars. Each star is separated from other by an unimaginable distance, far more than what you can ever imagine. If an average resident of Zhenwujie was told about the distance between the stars, it would be like casting pearls before a swine, but Yi Shiwen was naturally not the same and already knew about this. According to the appendix on East China Sea map, there are many forces in this region. In addition to those pirates, there are many scattered martial sects, although they cannot be compared to Yi Yuan School and other several major forces, but all have their own characteristics. Not to mention, in the depths of the East China Sea, there are a lot of unusually formidable sections. It is said that there are many sects among them, which are not weaker than Yi Yuan School, and many tyrannical sects are thriving on huge continent-like islands. Yi Shiwen said. And not just these tyrannical forces, in this sea, there are lots of demon beasts as well. In short, there were many who refused to accept the laws of the land. In this sea, elixirs and heavenly treasures are endless, so the might of these demon beasts and martial sects is tyrannical. Yi Shiwen said. It also has many submarine-based spiritual pulses, and their quality is much higher compared to the quality of spiritual pulses on the land, but various demon beasts are lurking near the seabed, and it's a pity that your strength is not enough to deal with them. Otherwise, you could go there and conveniently plunder the spirit stones from those demon beasts. Yi Mo said. The demon beasts of Xiantian level had remarkable wisdom, but it could be said that there was really not much difference between truth-level demon beasts and humans. The truth-level demon beasts even used to organize armies consisting of the Xiantian-level demon beasts, carved out their own territory in the sea. They were not one bit weaker than human experts and belonged to a different kind of civilization. Immediately after killing that Luo Yifan, you can practice here for a month. Your cultivation will certainly have a huge improvement. Once you have beheaded Luo Yifan, completely eradicate all those pirates, and then, you can pillage the treasure they have gathered after roaming in the East China Sea for so many years. They must have saved up a lot of treasure, which should also contain many top-grade spirit stones, just enough for you to start practicing once again. Yi Mo said. Anyway, Qianji Island was located in the East China Sea, and it would be quite convenient to reach there. It was also better for Yi Shiwen to become much stronger before participating in the competition. Moreover, the pirates of the East China Sea were like a plague. They must be eradicated completely. If not killed, then they would continue to harm innocent people. In addition to that, these pirates had plundered lots of spirit stones and other practice materials, so Yi Shiwen could use these treasures to hone his skills. Yi Shiwen was flying extremely fast and soon left the continent far behind, and it slowly went out of sight. Shua. Suddenly, a storm appeared in the distance, and speeding Yi Shiwen entered this storm, when he saw that the weather was turning hostile above the sea. This storm was really too horrifying. Yi Shiwen was finding very hard to resist inside it. The Lingqi was sweeping across so fast and wildly that it could directly crush a warrior of Hotian level. Even Xiantian level warriors would find it hard to maintain a strong foothold in this storm. After Yi Shiwen strengthened the Zhenyuan cover over his body, he directly dived into the sea water. Compared to the raging and towering waves and wild winds rushing all the way from the sea surface to the clouds, the entire seabed was very quiet. and was not at all unstable, even though there were monstrous waves on the sea surface. However, inside the sea, there simply was no shred of light because of the stormy clouds in the sky and huge depth and massive amount of water over his head. The light couldn't reach so deep inside, and even Yi Shiwen could see only a little. He could only see clearly for a few meters. The distant places inside the silent sea seemed strange, and could easily make people feel nervous. Then abruptly, a fishy smell entered his nostrils, and a giant shadow leapt towards Yi Shiwen. The giant shadow opened its big mouth and nipped towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen hastily stepped back in the water. However, his speed was slow compared to his speed on land. Although after achieving the strength of Truth Realm or later, one could breathe in the water, walk in the fire, but these were just magical powers, though powerful, but were nothing comparable to the abilities of the genuine denizens of the sea. They didn't use supernatural powers, it was all basic instinct, while for land walkers, it was obvious to lose their flexibility and speed drastically inside the water. After feeling the presence of that huge shadow, Yi Shiwen suddenly and hastily retreated, delimiting water waves inside the sea, and barely avoided being bitten by that big mouth. Yi Shiwen immediately condensed Zhen Yuan in the eyes, and a burst of golden light suddenly flashed in his eyes, increasing his eyesight considerably, and this helped him in seeing clearly compared to earlier. It was almost a 1,000 feet long black python. Its whole body was swarthy, had two huge disc-like eyes that were releasing scarlet rays of light. Yi Shiwen had to hold his breath. This was the so-called deep-water black serpent, and he had read about it in the records. According to the records, deep-water black serpents were a famous race of serpents. There were innumerable deep-water black serpents in the world, and could only survive in the depths of the ocean. Their race was considered very horrifying. After all, a newborn deep-water black serpent was already in the Xiantian realm, and after reaching adulthood, they usually became terrifying monsters of the truth level. Inside the sea, their race was considered very tyrannical and domineering. Some deep-water black serpents had the opportunity to swallow heavenly treasures, and also had a chance to become water dragon. A water dragon was an extremely terrifying existence, and was capable of causing great commotion in a major sect like Yuan school. Moreover, it seemed as if this deep-water black serpent should have been awakened by the rolling storm above the sea, and must have woken up from a deep slumber. Yi Shiwen, this is your rare fortune. This deep-water black serpent's whole body is a treasure. It must have been in the deep sea, perhaps in a very deep slumber. You could never have obtained a chance to see it. You should thank the storm that suddenly appeared and awakened it. Moreover, its body has just crossed the length of 1,000 feet, which indicates that it has reached the adulthood not long ago. And it also means that it has recently entered into the truth realm. Yi Mo said in an excited manner. The strength and adulthood of a deep-water black serpent was directly proportional to the length of its body. After stepping into the truth realm, the length of a deep-water black serpent could reach up to 1,000 feet. After breaking into the second stage of truth realm, its length would be able to reach 2,000 feet. Each time its skill deepened, it would shed skin and its stature increased by 1,000 feet. The most powerful deep-water black serpent almost had a body length of 10,000 feet, and one wouldn't be able to see its entire body in one glance. If Yi Shiwen ever saw a big monster like that, perhaps, even he would have to immediately turn away. He was obviously not an opponent of such a monster, and would be easily killed in one tail sweep. However, even if this deep-water black serpent had just entered into the truth realm, it would be very hard for an average martial artist to deal with it. Generally speaking, the content of Zhen Yuan inside the body of any living being was always proportional to the size of the body. If the body size was greater, it could store more Zhen Yuan. Humankind generally reached the height of more than a meter, but this deep-water black serpent was full 700 meters long, a total of almost 700 times bigger than an average human, and hence its body contained 700 times more Zhen Yuan. In addition to that, being a demon beast of truth level, its body was much stronger and formidable than that of a human. It was simply not an ordinary tough opponent. Hiss, hiss. The hissing sound produced by the deep-water black serpent could be heard from afar. It opened its big mouth, revealing its poisonous fangs, white in color and incomparably sharp. If bitten, perhaps it could instantly pierce him to death, which was absolutely terrifying. Demon beasts of truth level already possessed very high intelligence. Yi Shiwen could even see fierce look on its face. Yi Shiwen instantly shot Coiling Dragon Palm. Hidden Dragon rises from the abyss. A dragon's roar resounded. His palm transformed into a dragon claw and rushed straight towards the big mouth of that deep-water black serpent. Boom! Yi Shiwen felt as if his arm hit the reinforced concrete. Accompanied by a loud roar and setting off waves in the water, a figure was directly blasted away inside the water. It was actually Yi Shiwen. This deep-water black serpent did not know martial arts. Just by virtue of its solid flesh and terrifyingly strange life force, it was able to beat back the attack of Yi Shiwen. These demon beasts were really quite unique. Ordinary humans simply could not be compared with them. Yi Shiwen couldn't imagine. This deep-water black serpent was so formidable now. If it learnt various martial arts, then it would become much more terrifying. The deep-water mysterious serpent opened its big mouth and gave out a long and loud roar, which turned the sea water into water swords, and went lazing toward Yi Shiwen. Each of these water swords was sturdier than a formidable master. They whistled and quickly arrived. Chapter 163, Poisonous Dragon Water Control Flag. Divine Dragon flings its tail. Yi Shiwen resorted to the most powerful move of Coiling Dragon Palm. Palm shadows appeared everywhere and completely surrounded the water swords. Those whistling water swords were then directly scattered and obliterated. To deal with this huge demon beast, Yi Shiwen was prepared to use all of the tricks up his sleeves. Only then he would be able to completely crush this demon beast. This was kind of person Yi Shiwen actually was. An average person would choose to escape in the very beginning as soon as they encounter a truth-level demon beast like Deepwater Black Serpent, and that too in the sea water. If Yi Shiwen was facing this demon beast on the land, then it wouldn't be so difficult to deal with it. Voila! The Deepwater Black Serpent's tail suddenly and fiercely whipped towards Yi Shiwen, pumping seawater with the strength of millions of jin, and instantaneously approached him. Break! Yi Shiwen shouted and chopped out his long blade, releasing a dazzling blade light of missing moon beheader, which directly rushed, cutting off water waves. Yi Shiwen swam as if flying inside the water, and instantly appeared in front of the Deepwater Black Serpent. The Deepwater Black Serpent didn't hesitate, and without demur, it directly whipped its huge tail severely towards Yi Shiwen, as if it wanted to whip him to death. Boom! Yi Shiwen instantly used Divine Dragon flings its tail towards the giant tail of Deepwater Black Serpent. The enormous power of the direct collision inside the seawater set off endless waves of water, rippling out layer upon layer. Once again, Yi Shiwen was almost blasted to be sent flying, but at the crucial moment, Tianyuan Mirror acted as an anchorage and saved him. Yi Shiwen secretly cursed in his heart, because if Tianyuan Mirror was not there, then he would have been sent flying. The fighting strength of this monster under the water was really troublesome. Begin! Yi Shiwen gave out a loud shout. Tianyuan Mirror flew out from within his body and released a terrifying scarlet light, which instantly flew over towards the Deepwater Black Serpent's head. And in a flash, the scarlet light shone over the Deepwater Black Serpent. Zizi! This scarlet-colored light shone on the Deepwater Black Serpent's body, and immediately, the Zhen Yuan contained in its body began to be corroded by this terrifying scarlet light, which was shining on its flesh and penetrating directly into its flesh, making it to give out intermittent waves of pitiful screams and roars. Its flesh and blood was getting corroded and melting, slowly transforming into bloody, scarlet light, and returning to the Tianyuan Mirror. Due to that, the scarlet light of Tianyuan Mirror was flourishing and becoming more and more powerful. Yimo's figure suddenly appeared right above the Tianyuan Mirror, along with a black light whizzing out of its body, and used his small hands to pinch some kind of tactics unceasingly into the mirror. Under his manipulation, the might of the Tianyuan Mirror was constantly increasing, and began devouring the Deepwater Black Serpent's essence and blood even faster. Ha ha ha, this is really so cool! Yimo yelled, which dancing with joy. But at this time, without the slightest hesitation, Yi Shiwen instantly shot his long knife and maliciously stabbed into the Deepwater Black Serpent's body, and right after the long blade stabbed and went into its body, while still holding it in one hand, Yi Shiwen used his other hand to directly punch on it, and plunged his blade straight into the body of the deep-water black serpent. Roar! The deep-water black serpent screamed pitifully with the intense pain. Its whole body began to twitch and twist crazily, while violently lashing out millions of tons of seawater in all directions. But Yi Mo remained radically unmoved, and continued to unceasingly pinch his tactics into the Tianyuan mirror. At this time, the true fearful might of Tianyuan mirror fully emerged, and under the control of Yi Mo, it could be said that this might was not one bit weaker than the might of a truth-level master at the peak of truth first stage. This kind of might was absolutely powerful, and could cause complete mess. According to what Yi Mo said, this was because Tianyuan mirror just now woke up from its endless sleep, so it could only display this much strength, as long as there was sufficient accumulation of energy. Yi Shiwen could quickly restore it to its true valiance. As Tianyuan mirror was absorbed more and more essence and blood of deep-water black serpent, the scarlet patterns on Tianyuan mirror began to become even stranger. Yi Shiwen was crazily waving his long blade inside the deep-water black serpent's body, and each time, terrifying blade light was flashing inside its body. The barrage of Yi Zaiwen's malicious blade attacks had completely churned the internal organs of the deep-water black serpent, although its outer skin was very hard and tough. But that was not the case for its visceral organs. Yi Shiwen was constantly using his fierce blade attacks on its soft and unprotected internal organs. The deep-water black serpent struggled for some time, but was finally motionless, and it didn't take Yi Shiwen too long to find a fist-sized nitin inside the beast's body, and he directly drilled it out. Yi Shiwen finally relaxed. This deep-water black serpent was indeed very difficult to deal with. However, he still didn't know how many deep-sea monsters like it were lurking deep inside the sea. After the deep-water black serpent was dead, its body and blood was soon completely absorbed by the Tianyuan mirror, and vanished without a trace. Tianyuan mirror had shown faint signs of recovery after absorbing the life essence of deep-water black serpent, and perhaps it wouldn't take long for its might to become comparable to the second stage of Truth Realm. If the might of Tianyuan mirror became comparable with the Master of Truth second stage, then Yi Zaiwen's own strength would undoubtedly also increase by leaps and bounds, and he would be able to compete with Masters of Truth second stage. This deep-water black serpent's whole body is a treasure, Yi Mo said with a smile. After absorbing the blood and essence of this demon beast, he was in a good mood. It just so happens that I can refine a poisonous dragon water control flag, using the poison of this deep-water black serpent as basis. After you have practiced using it, it can be said that you will be able to directly kill a Master of Truth first stage. It will also become easy for you to compete with a Master of Truth second stage. And later when you behead more of these deep-water black serpents or other poisonous beasts, then the might of poisonous dragon water control flag will greatly enhance. Or after much practicing, you can form a flag array, then its might is going to be infinite. You can refine a tool? Yi Shiwen said in a somewhat surprised tone. Of course, although this is not what I most excel at, but at the same time for me, refining a poisonous dragon water control flag is nothing but child's play. Yi Mo said in a somewhat triumphant manner. But for it to succeed, I will need your help as well. Yi Mo said, this is the Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics, go ahead have a look. This is one of the world's greatest law tactics. Yi Mo established a connection with Yi Zaiwen's mind, and sent a stream of information flowing into his mind. Yi Shiwen began to frantically comprehend this so-called Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics, inside the mysterious space, present in his mind. Yi Shiwen had not been idling and directly crushed the nitin of deep-water black serpent, and began to absorb it. Although this deep-water black serpent was just at the first stage of Truth Realm, and had recently stepped into the Truth Realm, but its body was huge and its nitin's inherent energy was almost 10 times more than the energy possessed by masters at the first stage of Truth Realm. Or perhaps it was a few times more potent. Yi Shiwen immediately felt a thrill of horrifying energy that began to flow within his body. He instantly lost concentration, and had to focus on controlling this terrifying energy that was surging inside his body, and while at the same time, he was also busy comprehending Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen was already accustomed to this pattern, because from the beginning he had been doing the same thing and was already an expert at using the mysterious space. In short, he was accustomed to dividing his spirit and concentration into two parts to focus on two tasks at the same time, and manage them unaffected. The huge snake skin, bones and even the teeth of the deep-water black serpent were rapidly incorporated into the Tianyuan mirror. Yi Mo also entered the Tianyuan mirror and began coordinating with Yi Shiwen to help him with the refining process. Although he knew the Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics, but he himself was a tool spirit and did not have the required capability, so he must coordinate with Yi Shiwen and let him do the actual refining. Yi Shiwen was unceasingly absorbing the massive energy present in the Niden of the deep-water black serpent into his own body, and on the same time, he was focusing on comprehending Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics, while constantly refining the poisonous dragon water control flag. Almost without wasting even a single moment, Tianyuan mirror was unceasingly rotating above Yi Ziwen's head and disseminating bursts of coercion to get rid of the nearby deep-sea monsters, so that they wouldn't dare to approach Yi Shiwen. As the time was passing second by second, it could be said that there was no sense of day and night in the deep sea. Yi Shiwen did not know after how long he abruptly opened his eyes, and an absolutely formidable imposing aura suddenly erupted from his body, whipping out an endless amount of water waves. Yi Ziwen's strength finally rose dramatically and finally reached a peak condition. Before, if Yi Ziwen's strength could only be considered comparable to the true masters of the intermediate level of Truth First Stage, now after absorbing the Niden of Deepwater Black Serpent, his cultivation increased considerably. At present, his strength was easily comparable to the master of peak level of Truth First Stage. At this time he finally managed to have a breakthrough from Xiantian 9th Stage, and achieved the Xiantian Great Realm. It could be said that at any time he would actually cross over to the Truth Realm. Even at his current strength, Yi Shiwen was strong enough to sweep away any master of Truth First Stage. However, masters of Truth Second Stage would still be very difficult to deal with, and he might have to retreat while facing them. Meanwhile, the refining process of poisonous dragon water control flag was finally complete. On the side of Tianyuan mirror, a black-colored and insignificant-looking little flag was flying and directly flew into the hand of Yi Shiwen while its size reduced and became comparable to palm-sized dimensions. A pleasant feeling appeared in his heart when he realized that he could completely control it. This was the first divine tool refined by Yi Shiwen, and was extremely powerful. When sufficient amount of qi was injected into this tool, the toxic gas sprayed out from it would be enough to effortlessly kill a master of Truth First Stage, and even a master of Truth Second Stage would be seriously injured. This poisonous dragon water control flag tool was in itself a divine tool mentioned in the records of Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics, which also included many other kinds of tools that required various refining methods and variety of tricks, etc. If the word about it spread out, it was enough to cause sensation and commotion throughout the Zhenwu Jia. From the very basic spirit tools, Celestial Emperor tool refining tactics contained records of complete refining methods for all kinds of tools, which made it an absolutely insane existence in this world. One must not forget that Yi Mo was indeed also a great presence in this world. And the refining method of poisonous dragon water control flag was the refining method directly created by the poisonous dragon race, one of the true dragon races, and was famous for its mercilessness and slaughtering. The might of the poisonous dragon water control flag would be simply unthinkable if it was refined out of a poisonous dragon's body. Poisonous dragon race was one of the true dragon races, and with just a casual flick of their finger, even peerless masters could be stabbed to death. Although Yi Shiwen refined poisonous dragon water control flag from a deep-water black serpent, and it was only a lower-level product, but its might was very big without a doubt. Now, relying on the strength of poisonous dragon water control flag, Yi Shiwen should be able to compete with the masters of Truth Second Stage, and it would certainly ensure his success. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes and the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile. It was time to find Luo Yifan and settle accounts with him. Chapter 164 Luo Yifan's Plot. Yi Shiwen was flying and seemed to be riding a rainbow, and rushing towards the location on the map, which was supposedly the stronghold of Crazy Shark 13 pirates. Having the nautical chart was beneficial, After flying for a day and night, Yi Shiwen finally reached the den of the Crazy Shark 13 pirates. Those Crazy Shark 13 pirates should be here somewhere. I do not know whether Luo Yifan has come or not. I should look around and see. Yi Shiwen looked from afar and saw a small island. There was a not-so-big marina on the island, and there were many pirate ships docked on it. Yi Shiwen saw many pirates shuttling back and forth. Among them, there were many pirates with their strengths at Hotian 5th stage or Hotian 6th stage. Not to mention there were a lot Xiantian realm masters as well, and they obviously held higher ranks than those Hotian realm pirates. Yi Shiwen concealed his breath and hid behind the clouds so that it would be impossible for the pirates to discover his existence. Yi Shiwen just descended down from the sky while riding the rainbow light, but suddenly, a distant shrill piercing sound came out of the blue, and 7 men and women dressed in brilliant warrior clothing came flying while producing a sharp whistling sound. A killing intention suddenly flashed in Yi Ziwen's eyes, because among these people he actually noticed Luo Yifan's figure. Among these 7 individuals, besides Luo Yifan, 2 other truth-level super masters were standing beside him. One of them appeared roughly 30 years old, quite handsome and looked valiant. His imposing aura was threatening and was dressed in a purple robe adding to his extravagance. At his side stood a beautiful woman who appeared to be 20 years old. She was pretty and clad in pink brilliant clothing, and she appeared somewhat valiant. Besides Luo Yifan and the 2 truth-level masters, the other 4 people were quite young, and were actually the masters of Xiantian Great Realm. Each of them looked powerful and certainly didn't look like some trivial masters. Although they could not fly directly, but Luo Yifan and the other 3 truth-level masters had wrapped them in a layer of zhenyuan, so there was no problem at all. From the flower pattern on their collars, Yi Shiwen was able to tell that these 6 people were actually the disciples of Tianfeng Hall. In fact, relations between Tianfeng Hall and Yiyuan School had always been very bad, to the extent that disciples of Tianfeng Hall couldn't stand the sight of the disciples of Yiyuan School. If the disciples of Yiyuan School and Tianfeng Hall were at the same place, then a fight was bound to break out between these 2 groups. Yi Shiwen finally understood the whole thing. No wonder this Luo Yifan arrived so late even though he set off from Yiyuan School before him, because he initially went to gather these disciples of Tianfeng Hall, and arrived so late along with them. Luo Yifan, you said that Crazy Shark 13 pirates are here, right? The masculine truth-level master suddenly said. Yes, they should be here. These Crazy Shark 13 pirates have quite a reputation in the East China Sea. They have been rampaging in these seas for almost 200 years. The treasure accumulated by them is simply difficult to imagine. The treasure must be having innumerable spirit stones. Let's first kill these pirates, then not only we can use these spirit stones to increase our sect credits, we can also replace these spirit stones for medicinal drugs, spiritual tools and so on. Sister Shu has recently stepped into the truth realm, and this is a good opportunity to stock up for a smooth sailing ahead. Luo Yifan said. Well, this will make things comfortable and easier for junior sister apprentice Shu. And right after stepping into the truth realm, she can just take the heads of these pirates and celebrate. The masculine truth-level master looked coldly at the pirates working on the marina. Brother Luo, the most important thing is to help you in massacring that Yi Shiwen. Sister Shu smiled and immediately said in a cold voice. Indeed, a cruel smile appeared on Luo Yifan's face as he said, I'm sure, that kid is not a fool, but he is the type to seek revenge for the slightest grievance, not to mention, he is cruel and ruthless as well as conniving. He will do everything possible to get rid of me, so I deliberately spilled the beans. Let people know that I am here on a mission to eradicate the Crazy Shark 13 pirates. When the time comes, he should soon get the message, and even if he does not know on his own, I have arranged so that it is specifically sent to him. Luo Yifan sneered and said in an insidious and ruthless manner, so if he is what I think he is and wants to dig up the roots of his own personality, then he will definitely show up, and at that time, we will ambush him and catch him off guard on this island. That is going to be the time of his death. Yi Shiwen was carefully hearing their conversation from the sidelines, hidden in an underground passage, and thought that this Luo Yifan really was quite vicious, but also understood him so well that based on this understanding, he even set up such a deadly trap. 3 truth-level masters had come to crush him, and if Yi Shiwen hadn't spotted them before, then perhaps he would have been in a really tough spot after getting besieged by these 7 people. If Yi Shiwen had not arrived early and had not overheard their conversation, then he would surely have fallen into this deadly trap of Luo Yifan. According to what you have already mentioned, that Yi Shiwen is certainly not a weak guy. The masculine truth level master said. In the end, how strong is he? He is clearly stronger than me. I guess I will be able to deal with him if I team up with Sister Shu. Not to mention, there is Brother Situ to help as well. With your strength of 2nd stage of Truth Realm, it should be quite easy to suppress Yi Shiwen. Luo Yifan sneered and said that Yi Shiwen has recently enhanced his strength considerably, which is somewhat strange. His growth is very fast, so I think we must get rid of him as soon as possible, otherwise he will become extremely terrifying. Moreover, before killing him, we can also interrogate him properly and dig out the secret that helped him in enhancing his strength so fast. He definitely has been through several fortuitous adventures. Poor guy. Doesn't even know that we are going to seize everything from him. Chapter 164 to 2 Luo Yifan's plot. Yi Shiwen was listening to their talks, and discovered that the plan of Luo Yifan was more than just to kill him and eradicate a possible threat. Luo Yifan always had been very curious about how Yi Shiwen was able to enhance his cultivation by leaps and bounds, and that too so rapidly. And this was going to be a very good chance to capture him and discover about this secret, then seize it from him. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eye and thought that it was a good thing that he happened to be here and overheard about the conspiracy from the conversations of Luo Yifan and these people. Otherwise they would probably have caught him off guard. Good, in fact, I can take care of this matter single-handedly and finish him off in one fell swoop. Feng Sita sneered and said, not only we can eradicate these crazy Shark 13 pirates and seize their stock of spirit stones to exchange for sect credits, we can also seize the treasure amassed by them for so many years. And if what you say is true and that Yi Shiwen really has a big secret, we will snatch it up from him. Brother Situ, we should begin now. A disciple of Tianfeng Hall said in an excited manner. This was going to be a great and rewarding robbery, and was enough to stimulate them and make them go crazy from excitement. And you guys are responsible to deal with those ordinary pirates. Luo Yifan and Sister Shu will be responsible for suppressing those weaker 12 members of Crazy Shark 13 pirates. Meanwhile, I will handle this so-called truth-level pirate, the boss of Crazy Shark 13 pirates. Feng Situ said, these pirates really had a bad luck this time. The 5 great forces of Great Yu State have planned the warriors' meet to take place in the East China Sea. They would naturally want to clean out some of these annoying flies, so as to avoid the possibilities of anything going wrong during the competition. It could be said that for giants like Yiyuan School and Tianfeng Hall, these pirates couldn't possibly pose enough threat, and to be frank, they could only be regarded as flies in front of their might. Begin! After Feng Situ severely roared, Luo Yifan and other disciples of Tianfeng Hall formed a lean in the midair, and instantly dived towards the pirates. These pirates were simply like prey in front of these aggressive and bloodthirsty experts. They didn't have the capacity to resist and defend themselves, and most of them were killed in one move. Yi Shiwen coldly looked at these people slaughtering those pirates. However, he simply didn't care, because whether it was Luo Yifan and his friends from Tianfeng Hall or these pirates, each and every individual present there was his enemy, so he did not care the slightest about them. He immediately went into hiding and concealed his breath as well, and in his heart, he secretly began wondering about the means to bring all of these people in one big dragnet. But he was quite surprised, because he never expected that Luo Yifan actually had such great relations with the disciples of Tianfeng Hall. However, since they came to eliminate him, now, these Tianfeng Hall's disciples were also his enemies, and he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate them all. All sorts of plans began to surge up in Yi Ziwen's mind, one after another. Among these people, the most difficult to deal should undoubtedly be that Feng Situ, who was a super master at the 2nd stage of Truth Realm. When compared to Luo Yifan, he was much stronger. If it was before, Yi Shiwen would surely have turned away and would never think of clashing with such a master of Truth 2nd stage. But now, the situation was no longer the same. Yi Shiwen now possessed a deadly divine tool like poisonous dragon water control flag, and relying on its strength, He should be able to deal with a Master of Truth second stage. However, the key point should be to focus on severely injuring Feng Situ in the very beginning, which would certainly require him to make a plan. Since they wanted to ambush Yi Shiwen, he would gladly prepare a counter-ambush from them and eradicate Luo Yifan and the others in one fell swoop. When facing the disciples of Tianfeng Hall, it was obvious that these coastal pirates were not their opponents and were quickly slaughtered. Soon, after killing them all, Luo Yifan went towards the depths of Crazy Shark 13 Island, because the stronghold of Crazy Shark 13 pirates was located in the central region of the island. Yi Shiwen followed him slowly towards the depth of island, but he didn't forget to maintain a distance of 1 kilometer. Although there was a separation of 1 kilometer, but for Yi Shiwen and other experts of truth level, considering their extremely fast speed, this distance was nothing and could be covered in an instant without any difficulty. But this was only the case for experts. As far as ordinary people were concerned, it was still a great distance. As they were going all the way in, the pirates who were trying to block them were simply not their opponents, and the entire route was quickly piled up with the corpses of these pirates. They simply had no way to fight back, and soon, Yi Shiwen followed into the depths of the island. However, the central region of the island was not the same as Yi Shiwen had imagined. It was actually a mighty palace complex and had a considerably large scale. There were a total of 13 palaces, and each of the members of Crazy Shark 13 pirates individually lived in them. However, Yi Shiwen immediately felt relaxed, although it was natural that this world of pirates was completely different from the world of ordinary humans, because these were not normal human beings. In fact, in the eyes of ordinary people, it would seem like the land of deities. However, it was far worse when compared to the palace complex of Yiyuan School. When compared to the flying fortresses of Yiyuan School, this palace complex was simply nothing. And in comparison, it wasn't the slightest like the land of deities. The palaces seemed splendid on the outside, but on the inside, they were just like the palaces of mortal kings. And one could also see resentments and grievances hovering above the entire palace complex all year round. Bang! Suddenly, intermittent waves of fearful imposing aura began crazily welling up from the palace complex. Who are you people? How dare you intrude into my Crazy Shark 13 Pirates Island? A rumbling thunder-like voice suddenly echoed throughout the sky. Crazy Shark. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said. Chapter 165-1, Raids the Treasure Crazy Shark. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said. Crazy Shark 13 pirates had 13 individuals with 13 different nicknames, but the only imposing one among them was the nickname of their boss, who was called Crazy Shark. He was the most powerful among them, and was their leader as well, leading to his name gaining quite a reputation. And with the passage of time, their group gradually became well known as the Crazy Shark 13 Pirates. However, the nickname of the Crazy Shark 13 Pirates group's boss, Crazy Shark, was gradually forgotten by the people in the last few hundred years. Now no one remembered his nickname as Crazy Shark. Rather, they called him the boss of Crazy Shark 13 Pirates. Not long after, terrifying fluctuations of Zhen Yuan transmitted throughout the palace complex. It seemed as if the whole world changed color in front of this horrifying Zhen Yuan. Endless amount of Lingqi congealed into several Lingqi bombs and instantly rushed toward Luo Yifan and the others and fiercely exploded one after another. Boom! Lingqi bombs exploded loudly and incessantly, sweeping out an endless storm of Lingqi in the entire area. Yi Shiwen was watching it all from a distant place. He certainly would not think that Luo Yifan and the other disciples of Tianfeng Hall would be wounded by these bombs, though these Lingqi bombs were powerful enough to blow away the ordinary masters of Xiantian realm, and these explosions would have been quite fatal for them. But as far as truth-level masters were concerned, it could be said that the explosive power of these Lingqi bombs was not enough. Sure enough, the smoke and dust gradually dispersed and Luo Yifan and the other disciples appeared unharmed, and simply unaffected by the explosions. But at this time, the figures of 13 pirates suddenly came out from their respective palaces, and rushed straight towards Luo Yifan and the other disciples of Tianfeng Hall. Yi Shiwen did not stay there for a long time. He circled around and went inside the lair of the Crazy Shark 13 pirates. The 13 pirate leaders were busy fighting with the group of Luo Yifan, and the weak pirates that were left behind to protect the palace complex were certainly not the opponents of Yi Shiwen. These remaining pirates were directly beheaded by him, which was an effortless job for him. Afterwards, he searched their memories and instantly found out about the whole structure of the palace complex, as well as the place where the crazy shark 13 pirates had hidden their treasure. Yi Shiwen directly rushed towards that place where the treasure was kept, and after going inside, the first thing he saw was a giant furnace in a room filled with medicinal pills. This is actually the best quality spiritual tool ranked alchemy furnace to refine immortality pills. Gee, this kind of thing, even among the masters of legendary realm, not everyone can have it. Yi Mo suddenly said. One of the more important factors to weigh the standard of sex was their capability to refine immortality pills using alchemy furnace, but Yi Shiwen knew that Yuan School had an alchemy furnace that could at best refine immortality pills of high grade, and was actually just a high-grade spiritual tool. It was obvious that it was inferior to the best quality spiritual tool ranked alchemy furnace that Yi Shiwen happened to find in this treasure room. The importance of immortality pills was known to everyone in this world of martial arts. Yi Shiwen also knew very well about its importance, although it could be said that Yi Zaiwen's general practice style depended mostly on piling up a stock of spirit stones. For Yi Shiwen, immortality pills were basically the source of providing a supplement of Zhen Yuan and healing. There were a variety of immortality pills for supplementing Zhen Yuan, or Zhen Qi, or for healing. Yi Shiwen mostly concentrated on amassing spirit stones because they were a necessary element in his practice. He had already spent massive amounts of spirit stones to be able to generate sufficient Lingqi and instill it into the mysterious space. Only then he was able to comprehend power techniques or enhance his cultivation. However, this style of practice was only followed by Yi Shiwen model. Most people's practice styles did not require a lot of spirit stones, because the efficiency was often relatively low, although it was still much faster compared to absorbing world Lingqi directly from the atmosphere. As far as the practice styles of elites and geniuses were concerned, they often tended to exchange spirit stones with immortality pills to support them during the practice. Yi Shiwen had not studied refining immortality pills from an alchemy furnace, but this could not hinder him from using it, because even if he did not know how to refine immortality pills, he still had Yi Mo to help him, at least for now, and after slowly learning to refine immortality pills, things would be quite easier for him. This alchemy furnace's ancient-looking body was completely covered with various marks and inscriptions. There was actually a Zhen method inscribed on its body to incite secret true flame, while there were lots of other Zhen methods as well. After learning to refine immortality pills from the alchemy furnace, Yi Shiwen would be able to sell a large number of immortality pills in exchange for spirit stones, and by that time he would have a steady source of spirit stones. Also, he would not have to rely on these indirect methods of earning spirit stones which solely depended on his luck, and was quite uncertain. Moreover, he would also be able to give a large number of immortality pills to the disciples of Qianyu faction that would certainly help them in enhancing their cultivation by leaps and bounds, in a short time. Haha, as long as you have this alchemy furnace in your possession, you will never lack spirit stones. And I also know a lot of superior refining techniques, so by using this best quality spiritual tool ranked alchemy furnace, your practice speed will increase as well. Yi Mo said in a happy voice. Yi Mo Tianyuan mirror could also rely on a lot of immortality pills and recover its strength by swallowing them. Of course, this was also possible with spirit stones. Although Yi Shiwen did not say, but Yi Mo was not blind, he was also silently watching that with each and every breakthrough, Yi Zaiwen's consumption of spirit stones would increase dramatically each time. Not to mention, he was able to break through to his current strength at an insane speed and in a short time. And this should be related to the secret hidden in his body. Yi Mo had already guessed that it was most probably this secret hidden in Yi Zaiwen's body that compelled Tianyuan Mirror to somehow recognize Yi Shiwen as its owner. However, Yi Mo was very intelligent, although he knew very clearly about this, but he also knew that he must not ask. If he wouldn't ask, then Yi Shiwen would naturally tell him about this at some day on his own accord. However, because Yi Zaiwen's practice style required a large bundle of energy, and for that, He had to consume a lot of spirit stones to maintain the breakneck practice speed. This consumption rate was perhaps even higher than what was required to revive the Tianyuan mirror. So Yi Mo could not ask for spirit stones from Yi Shiwen. But now the situation was no longer the same. As long as Yi Shiwen had this alchemy furnace that could refine as many immortality pills as he wanted, he would be able to refine various kinds of dan as well. In fact, things like He Dan were simply not worth mentioning. If he had sufficient raw materials and ingredients, these things could be refined in this alchemy furnace. In this way, his Tianyuan mirror could recover at a much quicker speed. Thinking of this, Yi Mo suddenly became excited again. Tianyuan mirror immediately flew in the air, and that alchemy furnace, along with various kinds of immortality pills spread throughout the treasure room, was directly sucked inside the Tianyuan mirror. There was a very large space inside the Tianyuan mirror. It could be said that it was so large, and it was just like a self-contained world, and Yi Mo was the lord of this world, which displayed his majestic existence. Although the appearance of this world had declined now, but the space available in this world was much larger than the storage space of the storage ring of Yi Shiwen. So Yi Shiwen took out all of the things from his storage ring, and stored them inside the large world of Tianyuan mirror. In addition to alchemy furnace and various immortality pills, Yi Shiwen also looted all kinds of treasures from the treasure room. Among them there were lots of pseudo-spiritual tools, low-grade spiritual tools, and he continued to take spiritual tools one after another. As for Yi Shiwen, a low-grade spiritual tool was only of little use, but this utility was not great, but he could use so many of these tools to develop the strength of Qianyu faction. So he thought that it would a good choice to give these tools to the members of his faction. Yi Shiwen seized a variety of spirit stones, including some low-grade spirit and spirit stones, almost a total of 100,000 spirit stones. He also looted a total of 20,000 top-grade spirit stones. He was satisfied because he was in a serious need of top-grade spirit stones. In such a short time, the entire treasure amassed by the Crazy Shark 13 pirates for so many years had now fallen in the hands of Yi Shiwen. When Luo Yifan and the disciples of Tianfeng Hall would come inside the room to check out the treasure, they would surely be irritated. On the outside, the fighting sounds were getting more and more intense, and then slowly began to fade away and gradually stopped. Yi Shiwen knew that the fight between Luo Yifan's group and pirates should be coming to an end very soon. In order to ambush them, Yi Shiwen hastily went to the side, restrained his breath and began to quietly wait for them. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire palace complex suddenly collapsed and the silhouette of a person also maliciously collapsed along with it. Dropping down from the sky, the sturdy body of Crazy Shark was hit by a streamer that blasted into his body and directly crushed his cervical vertebra. He was unable to breathe and ultimately died. After that, Luo Yifan and the others arrived at the scene, led by Feng Situ. Haha, we finally killed that Crazy Shark. Now his treasure is ours. A disciple shouted loudly in a happy voice. Search this Crazy Shark's memory. Where has he hidden his treasure? Completely search his memories. Feng Situ immediately said with a ruthless look on his face. However, Yi Shiwen did not wait for him to continue. Suddenly, a shadow instantly turned into a streamer and directly pierced the body of Feng Situ. Zizi, the layer of protective cover, made up of Zhen Yuan, on Feng Situ's body actually started giving out buzzing sound and began to corrode. And with just a slight pause for a moment, the corrosion instantly spread throughout his body. Ah! Feng Situ screamed out pitifully while the toxin instantly spread all over his body, causing his complexion to suddenly turn pale from the intense pain. Along with the feeling of dizziness, he almost directly fainted. There is an enemy. Feng Situ was only able to shout few words, then finally saw that a strange double-edged flag had pierced into his body. As his voice faded, he actually saw that the flag embedded in his body started to suddenly release large amounts of toxic gas, and the toxic gas instantly filled the surrounding area of over a radius of hundreds of meters. When the disciples of Tianfeng Hall, who were at the Xiantian Great Realm, came in contact with this toxic gas, their whole bodies were corroded and turned into a pile of bones. The toxicity of this gas was simply hard to imagine. Even Luo Yifan and Sister Shu were instantly affected by the poison. But fortunately, Their reaction speed was much faster than those disciples of Xiantian Great Realm. Moreover, their strength was also much higher. The toxic gas spread out very fast and filled the surrounding area, stopping them to move freely. Scatter out. Luo Yifan severely bellowed and agitated the Zhenyuan throughout his body. It seemed as if his clothes were filled with air and bulged out, followed by a surge of terrifying blast of Zhenyuan that instantly dispersed the toxic gas. Who actually dares to attack us? Luo Yifan shouted in an angry tone. They were planning to ambush someone else here, but he never thought that they would be the ones to get ambushed instead. This feeling was simply very depressing. Go to hell. Yi Shiwen shouted in a loud voice and chopped out his blade. Thousands of blade light appeared and instantly formed a dense and severe rain of dazzling blades, directly falling towards Luo Yifan to chop him down into pieces. What, Yi Shiwen, it's actually you. Luo Yifan did not expect that the one to ambush him would actually be Yi Shiwen. How was this possible? How could Yi Shiwen possibly be hiding here to ambush him? Luo Yifan, you actually conspired against me. Yi Shiwen sneered disdainfully and said, I have already ripped your plot into shreds. Die. Luo Yifan severely roared in, and raised his sword towards the rain of blade light. Boom. Chapter 165-1, Raids the Treasure Crazy Shark. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said, Crazy Shark 13 pirates had 13 individuals with 13 different nicknames, but the only imposing one among them was the nickname of their boss, who was called Crazy Shark. He was the most powerful among them, and was their leader as well, leading to his name gaining quite a reputation. And with the passage of time, their group gradually became well known as the Crazy Shark 13 Pirates. However, the nickname of the Crazy Shark 13 Pirates group's boss, Crazy Shark, was gradually forgotten by the people in the last few hundred years. Now no one remembered his nickname as Crazy Shark, rather they called him the boss of Crazy Shark 13 Pirates. Not long after, terrifying fluctuations of Zhenyuan transmitted throughout the palace complex. It seemed as if the whole world changed color in front of this horrifying Zhenyuan. Endless amount of Lingqi congealed into several Lingqi bombs, and instantly rushed toward Luo Yifan and the others and fiercely exploded one after another. Boom! Lingqi bombs exploded loudly and incessantly, sweeping out an endless storm of Lingqi in the entire area. Yi Shiwen was watching it all from a distant place. He certainly would not think that Luo Yifan and the other disciples of Tianfeng Hall would be wounded by these bombs, though these Lingqi bombs were powerful enough to blow away the ordinary masters of Xiantian realm, and these explosions would have been quite fatal for them. But as far as truth-level masters were concerned, it could be said that the explosive power of these Lingqi bombs was not enough. Sure enough, the smoke and dust gradually dispersed and Luo Yifan and the other disciples appeared unharmed and simply unaffected by the explosions. But at this time, the figures of 13 pirates suddenly came out from their respective palaces and rushed straight towards Luo Yifan and the other disciples of Tianfeng Hall. Yi Shiwen did not stay there for a long time. He circled around and went inside the lair of the Crazy Shark 13 pirates. The 13 pirate leaders were busy fighting with the group of Luo Yifan, and the weak pirates that were left behind to protect the palace complex were certainly not the opponents of Yi Shiwen. These remaining pirates were directly beheaded by him, which was an effortless job for him. Afterwards, he searched their memories and instantly found out about the whole structure of the palace complex, as well as the place where the Crazy Shark 13 pirates had hidden their treasure. Yi Shiwen directly rushed towards that place where the treasure was kept, and after going inside, the first thing he saw was a giant furnace in a room filled with medicinal pills. This is actually the best quality spiritual tool ranked alchemy furnace to refine immortality pills. Gee, this kind of thing, even among the masters of legendary realm, not everyone can have it. Yemo suddenly said. One of the more important factors to weigh the standard of sects was their capability to refine immortality pills using alchemy furnace, but Yi Shiwen knew that Yuan School had an alchemy furnace that could at best refine immortality pills of high grade, and was actually just a high-grade spiritual tool. It was obvious that it was inferior to the best quality spiritual tool ranked alchemy furnace that Yi Shiwen happened to find in this treasure room. The importance of immortality pills was known to everyone in this world of martial arts. Yi Shiwen also knew very well about its importance, although it could be said that Yi Zaiwen's general practice style depended mostly on piling up a stock of spirit stones. For Yi Shiwen, immortality pills were basically the source of providing a supplement of Zhen Yuan and healing. There were a variety of immortality pills for supplementing Zhen Yuan, or Zhen Qi, or for healing. Yi Shiwen mostly concentrated on amassing spirit stones, because they were a necessary element in his practice. He had already spent massive amounts of spirit stones to be able to generate sufficient Lingqi, and instill it into the mysterious space. Only then he was able to comprehend power techniques or enhance his cultivation. However, this style of practice was only followed by Yi Shiwen model. Most people's practice styles did not require a lot of spirit stones, because the efficiency was often relatively low, although it was still much faster compared to absorbing world Lingqi directly from the atmosphere. As far as the practice styles of elites and geniuses were concerned, they often tended to exchange spirit stones with immortality pills to support them during the practice. Yi Shiwen had not studied refining immortality pills from an alchemy furnace, but this could not hinder him from using it, because even if he did not know how to refine immortality pills, he still had Yi Mo to help him, at least for now. And after slowly learning to refine immortality pills, things would be quite easier for him. This alchemy furnace's ancient-looking body was completely covered with various marks and inscriptions. There was actually a Zhen method inscribed on its body to incite secret true flame, while there were lots of other Zhen methods as well. After learning to refine immortality pills from the alchemy furnace, Yi Shiwen would be able to sell a large number of immortality pills in exchange for spirit stones, and by that time he would have a steady source of spirit stones. Also, he would not have to rely on these indirect methods of earning spirit stones, which solely depended on his luck, and was quite uncertain. Moreover, he would also be able to give a large number of immortality pills to the disciples of Qianyu faction that would certainly help them in enhancing their cultivation by leaps and bounds, in a short time. Haha, as long as you have this alchemy furnace in your possession, you will never lack spirit stones. And I also know a lot of superior refining techniques. So by using this best quality spiritual tool ranked alchemy furnace, your practice speed will increase as well. Yi Mo said in a happy voice. Yi Mo Tianyuan mirror could also rely on a lot of immortality pills and recover its strength by swallowing them. Of course, this was also possible with spirit stones. Although Yi Shiwen did not say, but Yi Mo was not blind. He was also silently watching that with each and every breakthrough, Yi Zaiwen's consumption of spirit stones would increase dramatically each time, not to mention he was able to break through to his current strength at an insane speed and in a short time. And this should be related to the secret hidden in his body. Yi Mo had already guessed that it was most probably this secret hidden in Yi Zaiwen's body that compelled Tianyuan Mirror to somehow recognize Yi Shiwen as its owner. However, Yi Mo was very intelligent, although he knew very clearly about this, but he also knew that he must not ask. If he wouldn't ask, then Yi Shiwen would naturally tell him about this someday on his own accord. Chapter 165-2 raids the treasure. However, because Yi Zaiwen's practice style required a large bundle of energy, and for that he had to consume a lot of spirit stones to maintain the breakneck practice speed. This consumption rate was perhaps even higher than what was required to revive the Tianyuan mirror, so Yi Mo could not ask for spirit stones from Yi Shiwen. But now the situation was no longer the same. As long as Yi Shiwen had this alchemy furnace that could refine as many immortality pills as he wanted, he would be able to refine various kinds of dan as well. In fact, things like He Dan were simply not worth mentioning. If he had sufficient raw materials and ingredients, these things could be refined in this alchemy furnace. In this way, his Tianyuan mirror could recover at a much quicker speed. Thinking of this, Yi Mo suddenly became excited again. Tianyuan mirror immediately flew in the air, and that alchemy furnace, along with various kinds of immortality pills spread throughout the treasure room, was directly sucked inside the Tianyuan mirror. There was a very large space inside the Tianyuan mirror. It could be said that it was so large and it was just like a self-contained world, and Yi Mo was the lord of this world, which displayed his majestic existence. Although, The appearance of this world had declined now, but the space available in this world was much larger than the storage space of the storage ring of Yi Shiwen. So Yi Shiwen took out all of the things from his storage ring and stored them inside the large world of Tianyuan mirror. In addition to alchemy furnace and various immortality pills, Yi Shiwen also looted all kinds of treasures from the treasure room. Among them, there were lots of pseudo-spiritual tools, low-grade spiritual tools, and he continued to take spiritual tools one after another. As for Yi Shiwen, a low-grade spiritual tool was only of little use, but this utility was not great, but he could use so many of these tools to develop the strength of Qianyu faction, so he thought that it would a good choice to give these tools to the members of his faction. Yi Shiwen seized a variety of spirit stones, including some low-grade spirit and spirit stones, almost a total of 100,000 spirit stones. He also looted a total of 20,000 top-grade spirit stones. He was satisfied because he was in a serious need of top-grade spirit stones. In such a short time, the entire treasure amassed by the Crazy Shark 13 pirates for so many years had now fallen in the hands of Yi Shiwen. When Luo Yifan and the disciples of Tianfeng Hall would come inside the room to check out the treasure, they would surely be irritated. On the outside, the fighting sounds were getting more and more intense, and then slowly began to fade away and gradually stopped. Yi Shiwen knew that the fight between Luo Yifan's group and pirates should be coming to an end very soon. In order to ambush them, Yi Shiwen hastily went to the side, restrained his breath and began to quietly wait for them. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire palace complex suddenly collapsed, and the silhouette of a person also maliciously collapsed along with it, dropping down from the sky. The sturdy body of Crazy Shark was hit by a streamer that blasted into his body and directly crushed his cervical vertebra. He was unable to breathe and ultimately died. After that, Luo Yifan and the others arrived at the scene, led by Feng Situ. Haha, we finally killed that Crazy Shark, now his treasure is ours. A disciple shouted loudly in a happy voice. Search this Crazy Shark's memory. Where has he hidden his treasure? Completely search his memories. Feng Situ immediately said with a ruthless look on his face. However, Yi Shiwen did not wait for him to continue. Suddenly, a shadow instantly turned into a streamer and directly pierced the body of Feng Situ. Zizi. The layer of protective cover, made up of Zhen Yuan, on Feng Situ's body actually started giving out buzzing sound and began to corrode. And with just a slight pause for a moment, the corrosion instantly spread throughout his body. Ah! Feng Situ screamed out pitifully while the toxin instantly spread all over his body, causing his complexion to suddenly turn pale from the intense pain. Along with the feeling of dizziness, he almost directly fainted. There is an enemy. Feng Situ was only able to shout few words, then finally saw that a strange double-edged flag had pierced into his body. As his voice faded, he actually saw that the flag embedded in his body started to suddenly release large amounts of toxic gas, and the toxic gas instantly filled the surrounding area of over a radius of hundreds of meters. When the disciples of Tianfeng Hall, who were at the Xiantian Great Realm, came in contact with this toxic gas, their whole bodies were corroded and turned into a pile of bones. The toxicity of this gas was simply hard to imagine. Even Luo Yifan and Sister Shu were instantly affected by the poison. But fortunately, their reaction speed was much faster than those disciples of Xiantian Great Realm. Moreover, their strength was also much higher. The toxic gas spread out very fast and filled the surrounding area, stopping them to move freely. Scatter out! Luo Yifan severely bellowed and agitated the Zhen Yuan throughout his body. It seemed as if his clothes were filled with air and bulged out, followed by a surge of terrifying blast of Zhen Yuan that instantly dispersed the toxic gas. Who actually dares to attack us? Luo Yifan shouted in an angry tone. They were planning to ambush someone else here, but he never thought that they would be the ones to get ambushed instead. This feeling was simply very depressing. Go to hell! Yi Shiwen shouted in a loud voice and chopped out his blade. Thousands of blade light appeared and instantly formed a dense and severe rain of dazzling blades, directly falling towards Luo Yifan to chop him down into pieces. What, Yi Shiwen, it's actually you. Luo Yifan did not expect that the one to ambush him would actually be Yi Shiwen. How was this possible? How could Yi Shiwen possibly be hiding here to ambush him? Luo Yifan, you actually conspired against me. Yi Shiwen sneered disdainfully and said, I have already ripped your plot into shreds. Die. Luo Yifan severely roared in, and raised his sword towards the rain of blade light. Boom. Chapter 166-1, Luo Yifan beheaded. Boom. With a loud bang, Bladiki and Swordki fiercely collided with each other, casing a massive explosion while seemed like the blossoming of fireworks, and the terrifying blast force directly sent the debris of the palace complex flying in all directions. At this time, due to this fierce collision, Luo Yifan had to immediately and hastily retreat. He was directly shaken by the power of this collision, and was pushed back in the midair, compelling him to crazily draw back several dozen steps before stopping, while an incredible look appeared on his face. Just now, it could be said that the two sides had recklessly attacked at the same time, but it was actually Yi Shiwen who had the upper hand. Luo Yifan certainly knew that the last time he fought with Yi Shiwen, it was actually him who had fallen under the wind, and Yi Shiwen had almost reached the point of beheading him. He had been suppressed by Yi Shiwen in their last fight, but one must know that at that time, Luo Yifan's strength was only slightly weaker than Yi Shiwen. In fact, Yi Shiwen had to go through a tangled warfare with him for a very long time to slowly exhaust his stamina to gain an upper hand. However, at this time, he discovered that Yi Shiwen had simply become much stronger than before, to an extent that it was quite terrifying to imagine that his cultivation could advance so much, and that too in such a short time. Not even 10 days had passed since their last fight. If the current Yi Shiwen was compared to his self when Luo Yifan fought him few days ago, then it seemed as if Yi Shiwen was reborn with his strength enhanced by leaps and bounds. How is this possible? How can you suddenly become so much stronger? Luo Yifan was suddenly scared to death, but soon adjusted his mood and calmed down, and a shrewd look flashed in his eyes. He had become even more curious and interested about this secret of Yi Shiwen, and determined in his heart that he would certainly seize this secret from Yi Shiwen at any cost. It seems you are not aware of your imminent death. To think you still continue to devise plots, and that too in front of your own death. Yi Shiwen shouted in a loud voice when he saw the cunning look flashing in Luo Yifan's eyes. How could he not know about the wishful thinking of Luo Yifan? The long blade in Yi Ziwen's hand instantly released a burst of terrifying blade light. A seemingly infinite blade light was instantly chopped out, and rushed towards Luo Yifan to chop him into pieces. You are courting death. Suddenly, that sister Shu Han finally also stepped into the battle and attacked. The red-colored silky damask went towards Yi Shiwen at a lightning speed, and appeared just like a red serpent. It suddenly arrived in front of him in a blink of an eye. Humph! Yi Shiwen coldly snorted but didn't stop. His long blade still kept going towards Luo Yifan at an extremely fast speed. But at this time, he immediately used coiling dragon palm. His left hand turned into a malicious dragon claw, and went towards the red damask and directly grabbed it. Rip it apart. The red damask, which was actually made up of zhenyuan, was directly grasped in Yi Ziwen's dragon claw, and in an instant, it was directly torn to shreds with just one flick of his dragon claw. However, at this time, Luo Yifan noticed that this was a golden opportunity and immediately hacked down his sword. Suddenly, it seemed as if an ice dragon congealed out of nowhere, and went flying towards Yi Ziwen's blade attack. Boom! A terrifying collision occurred and set off layer after layer of shock waves in all directions. However, Luo Yifan's plan failed when he saw that his ice dragon was instantly split into two halves by Yi Ziwen's blade light. Luo Yifan, you are doomed. I would like to see who saves you today. Yi Shiwen sneered and said in a cold voice. Today he was planning to use his full strength and go all out in this battle in order to eradicate this scourge. Die. Suddenly, Feng Situ, whose entire body had been attacked by toxic gas, roared, and poisonous dragon water control flag was darted off his body instantly, and along with it, something crept out from the void. A 5 or 6 meters long and approximately 2 meters wide huge totem crept out of the void and flew straight towards Yi Shiwen. At this time, all of a sudden, Yi Shiwen felt a divine suppression coming from this totem, and noticed that this huge totem was exuding an ancient aura, which was actually suppressing him. Feng Situ had found this huge totem while wandering about in an ancient ruin. Although he found this totem in the ruins and could not determine its specific grade, but it was very strong and could simply deter the world itself. It could be seen that a master at the second stage of Truth Realm was truly a peerless existence. Even if Feng Situ had been attacked and poisoned by the poisonous dragon water control flag, and that too all of a sudden, he had been able to issue such a fierce attack. Yi Shiwen immediately dodged by quickly flying several feet away from the range of the huge totem falling towards him, and somehow managed to escape range of this attack. Boom! The entire totem severely smashed on the ground, and created a giant crater. But at this time, Luo Yifun's sword had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen, and it seemed just like a serpent flying towards him. Luo Yifun was looking for an opportunity, and bitterly stabbed towards Yi Shiwen with all his might. Shwa! The poisonous dragon water control flag instantly activated. A roaring deep-water black serpent roared loudly and flew out of the flag, and while still roaring and its mouth wide open, it flew towards Luo Yifun carrying boundless toxic gas along with it. This was the deep-water black serpent that was used as a basis by Yi Shiwen in refining the flag. The soul of that deep-water black serpent was caught, and directly inserted into the poisonous dragon water control flag. Hence it became its tool spirit. In order to increase the might of this divine tool, it was necessary for the tool spirit to have its own wisdom and mystical powers. The deep-water black serpent's huge body suddenly appeared in the air like a cluster of massive black clouds, and was simply hiding the sky and covering the earth. Although it was only a soul, but it had drawn support from the power of poisonous dragon water control flag to transform into an energy entity. Opening its sacrificial bowl like big mouth and releasing bursts of toxic gas, it fierce bit towards the incoming swordlight attack and instantly corroded it, leaving nothing behind. But after that, it did not stop and flew straight towards Luo Yifun and arrived in front of him. "You filthy beast!" Luo Yifun shouted and shot a burst of swordlight, and it seemed as if stars were falling from the galaxy. The swordlight severely collided with the body of deep-water black serpent. Pucci! The body of deep-water black serpent, which was actually an entity made up of condensed energy, instantly exploded, and along with this big explosion, endless amount of toxic gas spread in the surroundings. Only in a flash, the protective layer of Zhen Yuan on Luo Yifun's body was corroded, and some areas of his flesh were also corroded and melted, making him to suddenly shout pitifully due to the intense pain. Chapter 166-2, Luo Yifun beheaded in the gas cloud. A figure suddenly leapt up, and accompanied by a loud whistling sound, a terrifying blade light cut through the gas cloud and instantly appeared in front of Luo Yifun. "Luo Yifun, today is the last day of your life. You probably never would have thought that your plan to ambush me would actually backfire. And now, you are going to die at my hands." Yi Shiwen laughed loudly and said. Seeing that he was about to get rid of an enemy, Yi Shiwen was really feeling great. Luo Yifun was suddenly taken aback and felt startled in his mind, but at his side, the fearful black figure of deep-water black serpent congealed once again, because its body was made up of condensed energy, so the physical attack simply had no effect on the deep-water black serpent. It had already died and was nothing but a soul. Once again, the deep-water black serpent opened its sacrificial bowl-like terrifying mouth, and advanced towards Luo Yifun to completely swallow his entire being. Two terrifying attacks were advancing towards Luo Yifun, but this time, whether it was Sister Shu Han or Feng Situ, both of them were simply too far away and weren't able to rescue him. And before they could do something to save Luo Yifun, in just a flash, Yi Shiwen immediately arrived in front of him. "I don't accept this. How can this be happening to me?" Luo Yifun shouted in a depressed manner. How did this happen to him? Up until today, he was fully confident that along with the disciple of Tianfeng Hall, he would be able to successfully ambush Yi Shiwen. Then after finding out about that secret, they would kill Yi Shiwen and that would solve all his worries. If before, Yi Shiwen was an ant-like existence in his eyes, then later, it could be said that Yi Shiwen had become an eyesore and a possible future threat in the eyes of Luo Yifun. However, right now Yi Shiwen seemed to have become such a threatening existence that he was once again so close to taking his life. Yi Shiwen grew so powerful when Luo Yifun was not paying attention to him. So he was planning to use any means to get rid of this Yi Shiwen and completely eradicate him from the face of the earth. Then only he would be able to get rid of the worries in his heart, he knew. Yi Shiwen also felt the same way. Luo Yifan had already guessed that Yi Shiwen was planning to eradicate him and finish the source of this hatred once and forever. So he planned to act first and kill Yi Shiwen before he grew any stronger, but he never thought that his own team would be counter-ambushed by Yi Shiwen. In that instant, Luo Yifan recalled all the things that happened between him and Yi Shiwen. However, rather than cursing his own arrogance, there was a big regret in his heart that he did not kill Yi Shiwen while he was still small and weak like an ant. He was arrogant, and now he was unable to kill Yi Shiwen, which was also going to be the main reason behind his disastrous death. Yi Shiwen roared loudly. A dazzling blade light flashed and chopped down the sword light of Luo Yifan into pieces, then rushed straight towards Luo Yifan. Puchi! The blood spattered from Luo Yifan's entire body. He was sent flying high into the sky, while there was still an incredible look on his face. It was just too hard for him to believe that he actually died at the hands of Yi Shiwen. After beheading Luo Yifan, Yi Shiwen instantly rushed towards that sister Shu Han. She panicked and instantly congealed the red damask to block the advancing Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if the red damask was releasing waves of water on the surface of a red ocean, layer by layer stacking up. The total might was infinite and severely pounded towards Yi Shiwen. Shwa! The blade light dazzled throughout the sky. The bright flash exuded from it obscured the entire atmosphere, and that red damask was split in half and fell apart. Missing Moon Beheader! Yi Shiwen instantly chopped out the second blade. Then the third blade, fourth blade and fifth blade. The combined strength of these blade lights was much stronger than the attack of Shu Han. And after defeating her attack, at the last moment, the terrifying might of each of these blade attacks condensed into a single malicious blade attack, and fiercely collided with her body. Puchi! Blood spattered everywhere, her flesh and blood flew and scattered in all directions. Sister Shu Han had been effortlessly beheaded by Yi Shiwen. He didn't show even the slightest mercy and directly chopped her down into pieces. Poisonous dragon water control flag flew back into Yi Ziwen's hand, then began to rotate around him, releasing a faint and creepy black light. Yi Shiwen slowly walked toward the last survivor, Feng Situ. You are Yi Shiwen? Feng Situ was staring at Yi Shiwen and said, Yes. Yi Shiwen did not conceal his identity and said, I never thought that it will actually be us who get ambushed and killed by you. Feng Situ said with emotion. By this time, the toxin had fully spread throughout his body, causing his complexion to pale. Yi Shiwen also secretly admired this peerless master because the skill and strength of Feng Situ were really profound. If a master at the first stage of Truth Realm was in his shoes, then perhaps he would have died by now. However, Feng Situ was able to hang on for so long, and was also able to unleash the huge totem attack, which was simply unthinkable and admiring. You brought this upon yourself. Unjust and evil action takes you towards your own doom. This time you intended to ambush and kill me, and you never thought the same can happen to you? Yi Shiwen indifferently said, but did not relax and maintain a constant vigilance. He would never underestimate Feng Situ. Once there was any movement, he would immediately behead him. Ha 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 ha, you believe in that? Justice and in this world. I do not believe in such a thing. This time I lost to you because our plan was insufficiently devised and we underestimated your strength. We never thought that you actually possess such strength, so it's not unjust if I lost to you. Feng Situ lifted his head upward and said, You talk too much. Yi Shiwen said in a somewhat cold voice, then raised his hand and chopped out his long blade. Puchi! Feng Sita's head was severed and sent flying. Chapter 167-1, Poisonous Dragon Water Control Flag Array. After beheading Luo Yifan and the other two truth-level masters, Yi Shiwen did not stay there for a long time. He immediately plundered the wealth of these three people and quickly left. But this time, the news of the death of three true disciple-level figures was enough to shake up the entire Yiyuan school and Tianfeng Hall. One must know that there were only few hundred true disciples, even in a large sect like Yiyuan school, and each of them were considered elite among the elites and were no different than extremely priceless treasures. nurtured by their respective sects over decades or even centuries. There were many true disciples who left behind soul jade slips in the sect, and in case a true disciple was to die, his soul jade slip would immediately break and alarm the sect. Sure enough, not long after Yi Shiwen left, the entire East China Sea was in commotion. 3 truth-level masters had died at the same time. Yiyuan School and Tianfeng Hall were extremely furious and sent many experts to perform a thorough investigation. But Yi Shiwen had already taken precautionary measures. He had already destroyed their corpses, leaving no trace, so the experts could not find out anything. But after all, this matter happened in the nest of pirates. Although all of the members of Crazy Shark 13 Pirates group were obviously already dead before the investigators arrived at the scene. But Yiyuan School and Tianfeng Hall also needed to vent their anger. And thus, bad luck was about to befall the pirates very soon. Both Yiyuan School and Tianfeng Hall mobilized large battalions, comprised of formidable experts, and they began a large-scale cleanup operation in the nearby regions of the place where the incident had occurred. During this cleanup operation, a lot of pirate nests were destroyed and innumerable pirates were massacred in the process. But these experts did not dare to annoy the pirate groups that were originally part of the alliance of 99 Pirates Union. The so-called 99 Pirates Union was actually the alliance of 99 large pirate groups that roamed fearlessly in the endless East China Sea. These pirate groups had formed a very formidable alliance named 99 Pirates Union, and roamed bravely in the waters of East China Sea. They had composed this alliance to strengthen the strength of pirates. They worked towards safeguarding the interests of pirates, and 99 Pirates Union also acted as the chief moderator and managed the fights between pirate groups. Generally, when forces tried to make large-scale raids in the East China Sea in order to wipe out the pirate groups, they had to face severe counterattack from furious and formidable 99 Pirates Union. But this time, the matter involved 2 large sects. If there was only one, then there was a little scope of negotiation. However, the matter involved 2 large sects of Great Yu State. And not just that, 3 truth-level masters had died at once, which was enough to invoke extreme fury. That could simply burn the heaven itself. Who would dare to Steputan try to block such a raging fury? It could be said that these pirates who had to face the cleanup operation had a severe bad luck. Other people thought that the 2 large sects were venting anger on these pirate groups, but only Yi Shiwen knew that they should rather vent anger in their own hearts, because it was actually one of them who caused this incident, though it was radically trivial to mention it now. The primary purpose of both of these large sects was deterrence, to deter annoying existences like pirates and use any excuse to do that, for example 99 Pirates Union. Although it was only a loose alliance of 99 pirate groups, but its strength was very large. In fact, their overall strength was only slightly weaker than the strength of the 5 major forces of Great Yu State. It could be said that it was a very intrepid existence. If it was a peacetime and the 5 forces combined their strengths and attacked 99 Pirates Union, it would have been possible to crush them and remove their strong influence from the East China Sea. But at present, the situation was not normal throughout the Great Yu State, and there was chaos spread everywhere in the state due to the sudden rising of Baimajiao organization. They were igniting trouble everywhere. At this time, the 5 forces needed to stay calm and stable, at least until they would completely destroy Baimajiao organization. Although the 5 major forces had always considered 99 Pirates Union as a troublesome existence, but this was not the time to act against this intrepid force off East China Sea, because there was a risk of this matter going out of hands. After all, no one trifled with the members of 99 Pirates Union, because there were several truth-level masters among their ranks. If the major forces wanted to annoy them, then it would naturally not be a minor matter, and might cause a large-scale disaster. In this case, the 2 large sects were using this incident as an excuse and nice opportunity to perform a raid in order to reduce the strength of the 99 Pirates Union. And on the other hand, they were also trying to deter these lawless pirates. Chapter 167-2, Poisonous Dragon Water Control Flag Array. Day by day, time passed gradually, and all this time, Yi Shiwen was constantly searching for deep-water black serpents in the East China Sea, and whenever found, he would immediately strike and kill them. In a blink of an eye, half a month had passed, and in less than 10 days, the gathering of the 5 forces of Great Yu State was going to take place in the East China Sea. Yi Shiwen was unceasingly roaming in the depths of the East China Sea, and all this time, he had been looking for deepwater black serpent. In the last 2 weeks' time, Yi Shiwen killed 16 deepwater black serpents. Most of them were huge and swarthy serpents and were already at the first stage of Truth Realm. However, 3 of them were actually huge monsters and were at the second stage of Truth Realm, but were also directly beheaded by Yi Shiwen to be refined by poisonous dragon water control flag. Yi Shiwen had condensed the essences and souls of 17 deepwater black serpents into the poisonous dragon water control flag, and so long as refined at the same, he would be able to practice the next-gen method of poisonous dragon water control flag. At that time, the might of this divine tool would simply be so incredible that even a master at the 3rd stage of Truth Realm would find it very difficult to deal with it. Right now, Yi Shiwen was hiding underwater for quite a while, and far away from him, near the seabed mountain range, a several feet long gigantic deepwater black serpent was lying down horizontally in an oceanic trench. After looking for a long time, Yi Shiwen finally selected the 18th deepwater black serpent to be condensed into the poisonous dragon water control flag. Then it could said that its might would be enough to fight off a master of Truth 3rd stage. This deepwater black serpent was more than 2,000 feet in length, and looking at its length, it could be said that its length had almost reached 3,000 feet. Yi Shiwen had been observing it for a long time and discovered that this deepwater black serpent was already at the peak of 2nd stage of Truth Realm, and was almost close to shedding its skin and having a complete transformation. Then its length would increase and surpass 3,000 feet, and it would finally step into the 3rd stage of Truth Realm. This deepwater black serpent was at the peak of Truth 2nd stage, so Yi Shiwen decided that at the time of refinement, he would keep it at the core of poisonous dragon water control flag array, then its overall might would be 10 times more than anticipated, and then it would even be able to give a tough competition to a 3rd stage master of Truth Realm. Moreover, during this 2 weeks' time, Yi Shiwen had swallowed the nadins of several deepwater black serpents he killed, and as a result of that, the quantity of Zhenyuan inside his body had dramatically reached the peak level. His inner state had also reached the pinnacle of Xiantian Great Realm. Although Yi Shiwen had yet to cross the barrier between Xiantian and Truth Realms, but right now, he was strong enough to effortlessly beat a master at the 1st stage of Truth Realm. In fact, he would also be able to beat a lot of ordinary masters at the 2nd stage of Truth Realm. And Yi Shiwen was also able to affirm that if he could swallow the nidin of this gigantic deepwater black serpent, which was about to have a transformation and could step into the 3rd stage of Truth Realm any moment, then he would be able to break from the Xiantian realm, and would step into the Truth Realm in one fell swoop. And after stepping into the Truth Realm, Yi Shiwen could finally be able to effortlessly defeat the masters at the 1st and 2nd stage of Truth Realm. In fact, he would be able to easily compete with the masters at the 3rd stage of Truth Realm, and by relying on the might of poisonous dragon water control flag array, he would even defeat a master of Truth 3rd stage. Yi Shiwen saw that this deepwater black serpent was in deep slumber and breathing several million jin of water, setting of intermittent waves of water, but even if it was in deep sleep, its whole body was protected in a layer of Zhenyuan, and an average master simply could not approach it. Since it had almost reached the 3rd stage of Truth Realm, so the amount of Zhenyuan contained in its gigantic body was simply outrageous. Yi Shiwen did not want to cause any complications. It was best to perform a sneak attack and completely kill this gigantic monster in a single move, and then that should minimize the fluctuations as well. One must know that numerous sea monsters lurked near the seabed, and Yi Shiwen was unaware of them. However, this part of seabed was close to coastline, so there weren't many sea monsters. As one would move farther away from the coastline, one would find innumerable terrifying sea monsters in the depths of the sea. This part of the seabed was at least more than 10,000 meters below the sea level, and the pressure was ridiculously large. To be able to survive in such an enormous pressure, the demon beasts had to at least have the cultivation of truth level. The demon beasts with their cultivation less than truth level would be directly crushed to death at this depth. It was simply impossible for Xiantian level demon beasts to survive near the seabed. If the fluctuations were too large, and ended up attracting the attention of other demon beasts, then that would be awful. Yi Shiwen had faced a similar situation few days ago, and didn't want the same to happen again. Last time he had to give up on his kill, and had directly escaped after being attacked by several demon beasts. Also, it was a lot more difficult to deal with sea monsters at such a depth inside the sea. Yi Shiwen fully centralized his concentration on attacking the deep-water black serpent. I am aiming for a one-shot kill. Use the Tianyuan mirror to lock up the area around here. We cannot allow the fluctuations to go past this region. Yi Shiwen said. Not a big deal. Yi Mo said with a determined look on his face while he was stubbornly staring at that deep-water black serpent. At that moment, Yi Shiwen moved. His figure seemed just like a flash of streamer as he rushed towards that deep-water black serpent. However, Yi Mo acted even faster and quickly manipulated the Tianyuan mirror, which instantly flew out and released a huge screen of scarlet light that immediately hung over the sleeping deep-water black serpent's body. A certain range of area was completely enveloped and locked up by that scarlet curtain along with the gigantic body of this sea monster. And at this time, Yi Shiwen rushed towards that protective layer of Zhenyuan that was covering its body, but he did not hesitate, and in one fell swoop, he rushed past this protective barrier of Zhenyuan. Although this protective barrier was like an invincible shield that could block attacks, but how could it possibly block Yi Shiwen? In a blink of an eye, he easily pierced through it and rushed towards the actual body of deep-water black serpent. But right at this time, the deep-water black serpent instantly sobered up and woke up from its deep slumber. It was alarmed when its Zhenyuan protective shield was directly pierced by Yi Shiwen. It suddenly lifted its head upwards and roared loudly, and showing an unimaginable degree of flexibility, its huge body instantaneously moved. It flung its tail towards Yi Shiwen, setting off endless waves of water, and just like a bulldozer, it swept towards him. Chapter 168-1 Steps into the Truth Realm. Although this deep-water black serpent was very large, but at this time, its degree of flexibility had actually gone far beyond the imagination of many people. It could be said that it was as fast as the lightning. It was able to instantly arrive in front of Yi Shiwen. And suddenly, complete darkness spread in front of his eyes. Due to the sudden and quick movement of such a huge sea monster, it was as if several million jin of sea water was pressing down overhead, and Yi Shiwen was withstanding a relentless pressure. Yi Shiwen was not startled or panicked in this situation, and looked coldly at that gigantic deep-water black serpent. He struck his long blade at a strange angle, blasting an inexhaustible blade light, which directly cleaved the seawater and cut into the body of that deep-water black serpent. The flesh on the body of deep-water black serpent was immediately cut open, and the loud metal clanging sound resounded after the collision of Yi Ziwen's blade attack with the bones of the serpent. The intense pain immediately left the deep-water black serpent rolling on the seafloor. But at this time, the Tianyuan mirror dangled, and finally assumed an awe-inspiring pose, then released bursts of intermittent scarlet color curtain. The scarlet-colored light curtain bumped into the body of deep-water black serpent, and immediately burnt through the protective cover of Zhenyuan. It even burnt its flesh. Roar! Deepwater black snake felt intense pain and started struggling, and while struggling, it released endless amount of toxin in the water which welled up straight towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not have the slightest hesitation, and instantly, the rushing toxin was completely absorbed by the 17 surface poisonous dragon water control flag. Not even a shred of toxin was able to reach Yi Ziwen's side. After absorbing the toxin, there was a faint light flashing from the 17 surface poisonous dragon water control flag. This poisonous dragon water control flag was itself just at the first stage of Truth Realm, or capable of killing the masters at the second stage of Truth Realm when used by Yi Shiwen. How could it possibly be on par with the deep-water black serpent that was about to step into the third stage of Truth Realm? Yi Shiwen sneered loudly, and from the whole body of 17 surface poisonous dragon water control flag, 17 large and small souls emerged out. These were the souls of 17 deep-water black serpents that Yi Shiwen killed so far. They instantly appeared when Yi Shiwen summoned them from the divine toll, and all of them rushed towards that deep-water black serpent one after another. Boom! 18 deep-water black serpents severely clashed, and the souls of 17 deepwater black serpents immediately began to maliciously attack that deepwater black serpent. The sea was just like the boiling water, seething and boiling tremendously. It seemed as if the huge serpents were churning the water. When besieged by the 17 deepwater black serpents, that gigantic deepwater black serpent immediately went berserk and started moving crazily and fiercely to fend off and kill those other deepwater black serpents. With just one lash of its tail, a deepwater black serpent at the first layer of truth later was scattered and dispersed in the water, but fortunately, these serpents were actually just condensed energy and could instantly regather the dispersed energy to regain its form. Although there was some energy loss, but it was not a big deal for Yi Shiwen, because recently, he had looted the treasures from several groups of pirates in the East China Sea. So it could be said that at the moment, Yi Shiwen was quite wealthy and did not lack spirit stones. Yi Shiwen was waiting for an opening, an opportunity. Yi Shiwen had already activated the Divine Calm Breath technique. Since he already reached the acme level of this technique, above his head, from time to time, a faint trace of white smoke would emerge occasionally. It was a sign that this technique's main function was to invoke good fortune. In the legends about this technique, it was said that practitioner was able to succeed 3 out of 5 times while using this technique, but there were anomalies as well. Yi Shiwen was waiting for an opportunity. There was a fearless expression on his face, and he was ready to attack any time, without the slightest fear. Finally, the opportunity he was waiting for quickly appeared. Under the seas of 17 deepwater black serpents and after being constantly irradiated by the terrifying scarlet light of Tianyuan mirror, this deepwater black serpent's gigantic body was already covered in countless large and small wounds. Blood was oozing out from these wounds. From top to bottom, its whole body was covered in lots of nipped and bitten wounds. At some place, one could see the bones. Regardless of how angry it was, it did not have the means to escape, because it was being attacked by 17 of its own kind, and they were all indestructible souls, so it was simply impossible to deal with them. In a flash, Yi Shiwen shot. Full moon beheader. Yi Shiwen was calm and collected. Only in a flash, the long blade chopped out a bright and dazzling blade light, which was similar to the stars falling across the expanse of sky in general. The blade light went straight towards the deepwater black serpent, leaving trails along the way, and huge amount of water was instantly vaporized by the terrifying blade light. Poochie. The deepwater black serpent simply could not react and was instantly beheaded by Yi Shiwen. Its entire head was directly severed by the blade light. Its gigantic body was still unceasingly twitching on the seabed, but could not save it from its doom. Yi Shiwen received back the poisonous dragon water control flag, and all of a sudden, the Lingqi also dispersed. That blow a moment ago was the strongest blade attack he could chop out at his current state. Under normal circumstances, he could not simply release such a blade attack. It was a stunning blade attack. There was silence in the sea water, as if it had been silent like this since the time immemorial. Under the protection of Tianyuan mirror, not a shred of fluctuations or sound could go out. Yi Shiwen soon took out the deepwater black serpent's Naiden, and it was larger than the Naidens of other deepwater black serpents. It was faintly glowing and exuding a dim blue light. Without any hesitation, Yi Shiwen immediately sat cross-legged on the seabed and began to build up his strength, preparing for the actual breakthrough from the Xiantian realm to the Truth realm. When Yi Shiwen was at the Xiantian 9th stage, he was able to compete with the experts of Truth realm, which was already enough to shock everyone, but now, he was going to have an actual breakthrough and step into the Truth realm, which also mean that his strength would have a tremendous change. While on the other side, the deepwater black serpent's flesh and essence was also instantly and completely absorbed by the Tianyuan mirror, and the mirror began to exude dark scarlet-colored rays of light, which appeared somewhat strange. The Tianyuan mirror was finally on the verge of a breakthrough. After all, in a short period of time, it absorbed the flesh, blood and essence of several deepwater black serpents. Chapter 168-2 Steps into the Truth realm. These deepwater black snakes were really powerful demon beasts. Even strength of one was unimaginable for an average man, but Tianyuan mirror absorbed the essence from 17 of these deepwater black serpents. So it could be said that the strength of Tianyuan mirror had started to approach the second layer of truth realm. Then, after the flesh, blood and essence of this deep-water black serpent was completely digested, refined and absorbed by the Tianyuan mirror, its strength could be fully restored to the second layer of truth realm. Then it would become an even more useful weapon in Yi Zaiwen's arsenal. In many cases and considering a lot of situations, Yi Shiwen had to use Tianyuan mirror to settle many things. However, compared with the difficulty of Yi Zaiwen's breakthrough, the recovery of Tianyuan mirror was a much simpler job. Yi Shiwen absorbed the Niden he took out from the bodies of the deep-water black serpents he killed in the last few days. Originally, he did not dare to absorb the Niden of demon beasts, because the Zhen Yuan of humans and demon beasts was not the same. Some people called this monster Yuan, which was a heterogeneous kind of Zhen Yuan. It was also very violent and chaotic. In fact, earlier, Yi Shiwen had hunted many demon beasts, especially when he was still in the forest of Qingfeng Mountain. There he hunted a lot of demon beasts, but he would always replace the demon cores with low-grade spirit stones, because he did not dare to absorb them directly. The direct and casual absorption could suddenly explode his body and kill him. However, now the situation was very different from what it used to be back then. Before absorbing the energy from Niden, Yi Shiwen would first filter it using the Tianyuan mirror, and after filtering the energy, it would become the same as the Zhen Yuan present in his body, removing a lot of impurities and making it even better and much more pure than the Zhen Yuan already present in his body, so Yi Shiwen could rest assured and freely absorb the refined energy from the Niden. In a flash, the massive amount of energy contained in the Niden of this gigantic deep-water black serpent began to gradually enter the body of Yi Shiwen body. It was like the resentful soul of the deep-water black serpent, which was condensed in its Niden. And now, it was not extinguishing and firmly attaching itself to the Niden. Yi Shiwen simply did not mind. He began to mobilize Zhen Yuan repression, and soon, the digestion of deep-water black serpent slowly progressed, its soul getting smaller and smaller. And Yi Shiwen was becoming more and more powerful, while his imposing aura was also increasing gradually and becoming more and more terrifying. During Yi Zaiwen's breathing, the surrounding seawater formed waterspout along with his respiration. His strength had already reached deeply into the exceptionally terrifying realm. The imposing aura of Yi Shiwen finally started to increase successively at a very high speed. After a long time passed, Tianyuan mirror finally and completely refined the flesh, blood and essence of the deep-water black serpent, and thanks to this, Yimo was able to finally restore the mirror to the strength of second stage of truth realm, and now, its strength was enough to suppress most of the masters at the second stage of truth realm. At this time, Yimo finally came out of the Tianyuan mirror and took shape. Originally, the image of the Yimo was that of a little devil, but now he transformed and took image of a young student, with elegant bearing, a green meat clothing, had several points of bearing actually, but could not conceal the breath of a devil. He appeared was somewhat nondescript. However, he had always been a tool spirit and tool spirits did not have a fixed image. The image they took was always according with the master's preferences. Yimo's previous master was a peerless great devil king, so Yimo ended up having an image of a little devil as his master would have imagined him, but now his host was a human, so he also became a human, and for Yimo, it was all the same, nothing was unacceptable to him. Yimo looked somewhat bored while watching the imposing aura of Yi Shiwen growing bit by bit towards the final breakthrough from Xiantian realm to truth realm, but although he looked lazy and bored, but he was still very vigilant. The Tianyuan mirror was working non-stop to mask all the fluctuations in the surroundings of Yi Shiwen, in order to avoid another attack from nearby sea monsters, which might lead to a considerable delay in the breakthrough of Yi Shiwen. And the 17 surface poisonous dragon water control flag was also constantly floating, all prepared to guard against the possibility of emergence of the enemy. At this time, Yi Shiwen wrinkled his eyebrows. The refined heterogeneous energy had been fully digested within in his body, and the Zhen Yuan had also become much more vigorous and reached a much higher level than before. When it came to purity, he planned to direct this incomparably pure and vigorous Zhen Yuan to open up the gate to the truth realm. Stepping into the truth realm was said the second major hurdle in the life of a martial artist, because unlike human beings, There were a lot of demon beasts or devil races who were born directly in the Xiantian realm, and by the time they reached adulthood, they would automatically step into the truth realm without any hindrance. For human beings, breaking through to the truth realm was even more difficult than to the difficulty of practicing, and breaking through all the way from the Hotian realm to the peak of Xiantian realm put together. In order to step into the Xiantian realm from the Hotian realm, it was necessary to open up the world bridge. So during that transition, when the world bridge was opened up, it allowed the body to switch from the initial closed state in the Hotian realm to open state in the Xiantian realm. The experts of the truth realm were considered honorable people, which meant that from the time they entered into the truth realm from Xiantian realm, they would give up affectation and go back to the nature. Then there would be no value of some representations. There would only be the value of the true essence of the world. Only after stepping into the truth realm, one could finally come in contact with the world's true essence and laws. It was a new beginning and a brand new process. Impact. Unceasing impact. Compared to other people who would find it very difficult to make an impact on the boundary of the truth, Yi Shiwen had the advantage that he had already comprehended the basic laws of the world, because the truth realm needs the master to comprehend the world laws, and he had almost comprehended the required laws by using the mysterious space, and now, he was relying on it, and the strength of newly acquired vigorous Zhen Yuan to have a breakthrough. Did not know how much time had passed already. In the depths of the sea, there was no sense of day or night. Boom. An enormous breath burst out from the body of Yi Shiwen. It was one type of intense imposing aura which was entirely different from his former imposing aura, and a completely different breath was overflowing the surroundings. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes in the water. He had finally stepped into the truth realm. Chapter 169-1 by Mojiao's plot. Truth Realm. Yi Shiwen finally had a breakthrough and stepped into the truth realm. He accomplished an unfathomable feat, something that was simply impossible for others to even contemplate. In this short span of a year, he stepped into the truth realm and became a true disciple. He could feel the changes in his body, which was glowing with vitality. A kind of vigorous and turbulent energy was flowing within his body that was entirely different from how it used to be when he was in Xiantian realm. Sure enough, there was a huge difference between Truth Realm and Xiantian, just like the difference between heaven and earth. Although he went merely a step forward, but he was fully able to feel a completely different and much more formidable strength than before. This was the genuine power of the Truth Realm. Relying on the beforehand and deep accumulation of energy from the nadins of 18 deepwater black serpents, last of them being almost at the third stage of Truth Realm, Yi Shiwen rushed all the way to the peak of first stage of Truth Realm, and was ready to cross over this one line, and step into the second stage of Truth Realm. Now Yi Shiwen could easily compete with invincible masters at the third stage of Truth Realm, and even if he ran into a master like that elder Jin Xian, he would be able to defend himself. In fact, by drawing support from the poisonous dragon water control flag array, it would be quite easy for Yi Shiwen to fight him off. Yi Shiwen got up and began the sacrifice of the last deepwater black serpent's soul for refining the last piece of poisonous dragon water control flag array. At present, Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the truth realm, and tremendous change occurred in his strength compared to his earlier strength. Regarding the matter of refining the poisonous dragon water control flag array, it was just going to be an easy job for him. It was nothing more than a child's play for him, and he seemed unusually very familiar with the refining process as well since he had already done it once before. Soon, the strongest piece for refining the poisonous dragon water control flag array was also complete. It skimmed out and joined the 17 surface poisonous dragon water control flag to form a resonance relation. The flag array was finally complete, and now, the only thing left was to constantly increase the might of this poisonous dragon water control flag. Since it was needed to behead and refine poisonous dragons to make a genuine poisonous dragon water control flag array, so the poisonous dragon water control flag array, refined by Yi Shiwen, was only an imitation of the real thing, and its might was certainly far less. Later, he would have to behead more deepwater black serpents and refine their souls in order to increase the might of this divine tool. Yi Shiwen got up and set out towards the sea surface. He was about to head in the direction of Qianji Island in order to meet up with the other people from Yiyuan School before the gathering, but suddenly, a violent fluctuation of formidable machi came rushing towards Yi Shiwen. "There are devils in the East China Sea." Yi Shiwen immediately gawked and exclaimed all of a sudden a moment. This was totally unexpected. And from the type of machi, Yi Shiwen could not make a mistake. Big fluctuation. Yi Shiwen was less than 10 li away from the source of this fluctuation. This machi was mighty and very formidable. Yi Shiwen did not move, just advanced in that direction while quietly lurking, because he could sense a terrifying presence from the source of that machi that seemed to possess an intimidating breath. Yi Shiwen did not take much time to realize that the mighty machi was just too enormous and extremely powerful. It immediately attracted the attention of numerous formidable demon beasts lurking near the seabed. Many truth-level demon beasts swam up from the seabed. The violent surge of Zhen Yuan turned sea water into numerous water swords, which were emitted at once and rushed towards the group of devils, but simply could not get close to them. The water swords were directly crushed in succession. Some of the devils in this group were horrifyingly formidable. Who are they, to think they are actually so fierce? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes after witnessing this scene, and did not know what to think. Also, for what reason will the devil race come to the East China Sea? Yi Shiwen felt somewhat strange. He advanced quietly and stealthily to have a look, but suddenly, a humming sound resounded in the sea. "Who are you people, actually dare to enter the territory of this Heishui?" It was actually the voice of a human, which immediately left Yi Shiwen in a very panic-stricken state. When demon beasts could speak in a human voice, with or without attaining an actual human form, it could be said that it was definitely a terrifying existence among the demon beasts, and its intelligence was generally no less than intelligence possessed by human beings. And these highly intelligent demon beasts were often very formidable and scary. "Heishui, could it be that you do not remember an old friend?" A voice came from the group of devils and suddenly said, accompanied by a burst of laughter, "It's you? Come in." The voice said and went silent soon after finishing, and soon, a large group of devils and sea beasts were welcomed inside a cave mansion. Yi Shiwen slightly hesitated but decided to have a look at what was going on. He already had a feeling that once again, Devil Race was certainly up to no good, and must be planning something big. Yi Shiwen pulled out the poisonous dragon water control flag, and at the same time, he took possession of the incarnation of the flag and transformed into a deep-water black serpent, leisurely swim in the water. Yi Shiwen had already practiced the restraining breath technique to the Acme level, and after reaching the perfection of this technique, even the demon beast in the sea would be unable to sense that there was something wrong, that it was actually a human transformed as a demon beast. Yi Shiwen swam all the way forward, and soon, a cave mansion appeared in front of him. He began to swim slowly towards the entrance, but suddenly, a divine perception swept over Yi Shiwen in order to confirm that he was not a threat. Then he was received by this divine perception. Yi Shiwen was secretly relieved. It got really too dangerous a moment ago, but fortunately he had practiced the restraining breath technique to the perfection level. In addition to that, his soul was completely enveloped inside the soul of the deepwater black serpent, so he was not discovered. If he was discovered here, then he might get in big trouble. One must know that at this place, there were too many of these truth-level demon beasts. Yi Shiwen knew very well that if his identity of being a human was discovered, other than making a quick escape, he would have no other way out. Moreover, the commotion would possibly alarm the other formidable demon beasts, and at that time, it would actually be a dead end for him. Chapter 169-2 By Mojiao's plot. Yi Shiwen was pretending to swim casually and carelessly, and arrived next to the demon beast that was responsible for the guarding. Looked at Yi Shiwen, but did not care too much, because while using the poisonous dragon water control flag, Yi Shiwen had chosen to transform into the first deepwater black serpent he killed, the same one that had recently reached adulthood by stepping into the first stage of Truth Realm. Also, right now, Yi Shiwen's consciousness had not developed fully, and even after transforming, he was just strolling around everywhere, but from the familiar smell, He could confirm that this place was really the Haishui's mansion. There was no doubt about it. Yi Shiwen was slowly wandering into the depths of the cave mansion. And at a distant place, he took a glimpse and actually saw the group of devils speaking with a huge deep-water black serpent. He saw that this deep-water black serpent's size was easily more than 10,000 feet. It was lying horizontally on the ground. The brilliance and toughness of its skins was entirely different than the general deep-water black serpents. This deep-water black serpent's body was densely covered in numerous thick scales, and even had 4 limbs, which definitely should not have been possible in case of ordinary deep-water black serpents. Although the entire body was almost 10,000 feet long, but with respect to its huge body, it seemed somewhat deformed and small. Even its head had grown out of its body at a tender and immature angle. Seeing this scene, Yi Shiwen immediately held his breath and gasped for a moment. Indeed, this was definitely the deep-water black snake king. Moreover, it could be seen that there were all sorts of signs indicating that this deep-water black serpent would soon transform into a water dragon. Yi Shiwen could see many signs. It was clearly visible that its scales would melt soon. The abnormal 4 limbs, the angled head. All of these signs clearly declared that this deep-water black serpent king would soon evolve into a water dragon. Water dragon was considered a creature of the legendary realm. It could be said that it was a transition species between demon beast and real dragons, and contained dragon blood in its blood vessels. Legends said that when true dragons took birth directly in the legendary realm of birth, and by the time they reached adulthood, their strength would have already reached outrageous proportions. Dragons were mythical creatures and were the so-called ominous beasts, and even one was enough to bring chaos and disaster upon Yuan school. However, although water dragon was not a real dragon and their species was obviously inferior to the real dragon species. But just like real dragons, water dragon species had also become part of myths and legends. It was extremely rare for someone to see a water dragon. No one knew how many years had passed since the last time someone saw a water dragon. Water dragons were the beasts of legendary realm. And perhaps, there were some hiding in the depths of East China Sea. It's actually a deep-water black serpent king that is soon going to transform into a water dragon. It's a big fortune, Yi Shiwen, a big good luck. Yi Mo's excited voice resounded in the mind of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen simply did not care about what he said. How was a deep-water black serpent that soon going to transform into a water dragon was a big good luck. As if Yi Shiwen could go and easily kill him. While Yi Shiwen was living his unstated criticism time, a divine perception of that deep-water black serpent king swept over towards Yi Shiwen, and when it swept over Yi Shiwen, the serpent king found a deep-water black serpent, but he did not doubt anything and took back the divine perception, thinking that Yi Shiwen was one of his own descendants. In fact, the areas surrounding the Heishui cave mansion was actually the territory of deep-water black serpent king, and all of the deep-water black serpents living in this area were his children and grandchildren. The small deep-water black serpent, which Yi Shiwen had transformed into, appeared as a new adult who did not have much intelligence yet, and was blindly swaying everywhere in the water. Of course, he did not know that a human being was hidden within the soul of this young deep-water black serpent. And not just that. This human had also killed several of his children and grandchildren, and intended to kill many more. Otherwise he would chase Yi Shiwen to the ends of the world in order to kill him. Yi Shiwen actually saw that the huge body of deep-water black serpent king had condensed out a humanoid soul that was talking to the group of devils. The ordinary deep-water black serpents could never display such an amazing ability. It was indeed the deep-water black serpent king that was soon going to transform into the water dragon. Yi Ziwen's eyes once again turned towards the group of devils. He actually saw that their leader was a young man, clad in a bright-colored robe. The corners of his mouth were curled up in a smile, and there was a happy expression on his face. But at this time, Yi Shiwen felt a terrifying and peerless aura coming out from his body, and it was unexpectedly not weaker than that of the deep-water blade serpent king. That said, it turned out that he was actually a fearful character, and was already in the half-step legendary realm. After this young man, Yi Ziwen's vision also located an old acquaintance in the group of devils, Prince Mo Yen. Yi Shiwen did not expect to see him in the team, and compared to a few months ago, now his strength had shown a rapid progress. Now he was no longer just a master of the Xiantian realm, but the master of Truth realm. Although there was instability in the aura of Prince Mo Yen, might be because not much time passed since he entered into the truth realm, but it was enough to prove that during these few months, Prince Mo Yen must have had a fortuitous encounter and obtained great benefits. Behind Prince Mo Yen, there were a total of 6 people, wrapped in shadow-like cloaks, and among these shadows, the strength of each was not simple. All of them were the masters of the truth realm, including both weak and super truth level masters. Yi Shiwen then finally discovered that he actually made a mistake. This was not just the team of devils, but was actually a team of Baimajiao. But that was also similar. Apparently there were the Baimajiao infested areas, so one could certainly not avoid the devils. Lu Hongwei, tell me, why have you come this time? The humanoid soul of Deepwater Black Serpent King said. Although the expression was very vague, it was not a clear expression, but one could certainly sense careless tone in it. What? He actually turned out to be Lu Hongwei. Yi Shiwen suddenly gawked when he heard the name, Lu Hongwei. It was definitely an illustrious name, and during the turmoil of Baimajiao 100 years ago, the name had become very infamous and legendary. At that time, he was already an extremely powerful character. It could be said that his strength was comparable to the strength of the top 4 disciples of Yuan school. He was also considered the strongest in the younger generation of devils in the Great Yu state. Chapter 170-1 arrives at Qianji Island. Lu Hongwei was considered a very illustrious and infamous character in those times when Baimajiao was most active. His strength was comparable to the 4 strongest true disciples of Yuan school. Yi Shiwen looked carefully and noticed that his strength was not inferior to that of Qi Fifan. In fact, he was also a peerless master of half-step into the legendary realm. Among the 4 strongest true disciples of Yuan school, excluding Qi Fifan, who had a late rise to the ranks of strongest 4, all of the other 3 strongest true disciples had fought with Lu Hongwei. Although none of the 3 could ever defeat him, but weren't defeated either, and this clearly showed the immense strength of Lu Hongwei. Yi Shiwen was being very careful because if any one of these 2 peerless masters discovered that there was something strange or suspicious, then he would not be able to escape. It would certainly be a dead end for him. 100 years have gone, but Heishui, you are just like you used to be back then. Lu Hongwei actually did not hurry to reply and said in a relaxed manner, if you have something to say it directly. The Deepwater Black Serpent King said in a commanding voice, clearly displaying the demeanor of an experienced superior. Although he originally had the origin of a demon beast, but he was the so-called legendary Millennium Flood Dragon. He had lived through thousands of years. It was hard to imagine the extent of his experience. Demon beasts weren't usually as wily and cunning as human beings, but in the case of an old monster like Deepwater Black Serpent King, one could be absolutely sure that he was wily and experienced. The 5 forces of Great Yu State are going to unite. They are going to have a gathering on Qianji Island to confirm their friendly collaboration. Do you know about this? Lu Hongwei did not beat around the bush and directly said, this matter concerns you, human being. Why should I know about it? Deepwater Black Serpent King indifferently said, Heishui, this statement of yours seems groundless. Lu Hongwei said with a faint smile, other demon beasts are ignorant and unconscious about their surroundings. All they know is to slaughter and fighting every day, but how could Heishui be ordinary like them? Well, in the end, what do you want from me? Deepwater Black Serpent King narrowed his sharp flashing eyes and said, Heishui, as far as I know, for the last few centuries, several forces of Great Yu State have joined up together, and have suppressed the development of your territory, which includes several channels and demon beasts that come under your control. Am I correct so far? Lu Hongwei said. Yes, so what? Deepwater Black Serpent King, Heishui lightly said. Don't you want to get rid of their control, become a side giant influence and do whatever you want? Lu Hongwei curled up the corners of his mouth and said, say Heishui, you do not have the aspirations and ambitions. Let those people get terrified. You do not need to prod me, it's useless. These words seemed to have failed in stimulating the wily and experienced Heishui. Heishui vaguely knew what the other party was talking about, but he would not swallow the bait so easily. The existence of 5 big forces of the Great Yu state was like a relentless pressure that he had no choice but to withstand, while he was like a loach, surviving in the crevice. He was already aware of the fact that the number of legendary masters among the 5 forces was calculated in tens, not to mention he was just at the half-step legendary level. This time, our Baimajiao organization is planning to subvert the rule of Great Yu state in one fell swoop, and use it as a springboard to bring the rule of Devil World in this world. Lu Hongwei did not mind to put out the highest secret, and openly said this to He Shui. Perhaps, this was the most important secret that most people did not know. The true motive of a notorious organization like Baimajiao was not known to everyone, but it was quite useless to inform the people about this because anyway it was necessary to defeat Baimajiao. You need us, He Shui said, but did not seem very interested in this topic. Even if the devil race came to this world, he did not care much because he was the ruler of demon beasts in the deep sea and his influence was not that great. I know Baimajiao's influence is very huge. Subverting the rule of Great Yu state is only a matter of time. Yes, our Baimajiao's influence is very huge indeed, far more powerful than what you can imagine at this moment. But even if we are so formidable, we have quite a formidable opponent, so we need as much support as we can draw. Lu Hongwei lightly said. We will unite all forces that can be united, and this time, we will give those 5 forces a lesson on the Qianji Island. So what, even if you go to the Qianji Island and attack the 5 forces during their gathering, even if you kill most of them, is it still not enough to cause heavy losses to them? He Shui disdainfully said. This is a war and will probably last for a long time, and we do not intend to finish it off in one shot. It is impossible to defeat them in so quickly. It has to be done slowly and gradually, and this is one of the steps of the main plan. Lu Hongwei said. What do you say? You must consider helping us. This is the one-time opportunity for a sea monster like you to come ashore. Expect our Baimajiao. There are no human forces who will allow you to come ashore. He Shui seemed quite interested. After all, nobody wanted to have to live an entire life in this dark place, especially a truth master who were said to have gotten rid of many features of life, and wanted to explore the entire world, and learn about the various laws of this world. Just like the truth-level human experts could breathe in the water, the truth-level sea beasts could breathe ashore. This was mutual. In fact, even Xiantian-level sea beasts could a few days on the shore. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.